Score yourself 1 point per fact you already knew. If you get over 25, you're officially a trivia boss. Ready?
So many questions. Why is the world spinning? Why is the moon keeping its orbit? Can rockets fly backwards? The facts you didn't know you needed. The Useless Show.
The weedy sea dragon, native to southern Australian waters, looks less like a fish and more like seaweed in disguise. With leaf-like frills and no actual function for swimming speed, it floats aimlessly through kelp forests, hiding in plain sight. This oddball camouflage isn't a costume, it's a survival tactic. First described in 1910, it belongs to the same family as seahorses, but has zero intention of blending in socially. In 2006, Pluto was reclassified from planet to dwarf planet by the International Astronomical Union, IAU. The new definition of a planet required that an object must orbit the Sun, be spherical due to its own gravity, and have cleared the neighborhood around its orbit. Pluto, which shares its orbital zone with other Kuiper Belt objects, did not meet this third criterion. As a result, Pluto was reassigned to the newly defined category of dwarf planets, a change that sparked widespread public debate and sentiment. The fangtooth fish, living in the deep ocean gloom, sports teeth so large it has to store them in sockets inside its skull just to close its mouth. This creature, which reaches only about 16 centimeters in length, holds the record for the largest teeth-to-body ratio among fish. Evolution, it seems, traded practicality for intimidation, because biting first and figuring out logistics later is a deep-sea tradition. Roughly 2 billion years ago, the Great Oxidation Event flooded Earth's atmosphere with oxygen thanks to tiny photosynthetic bacteria called cyanobacteria. While this was great news for future animals like us, it spelled disaster for anaerobic life that found oxygen toxic. It was the planet's first mass extinction, caused by microbes inventing photosynthesis and accidentally ruining the neighborhood. The tapetum lucidum is a built-in night vision upgrade found in many animals, including cats, dogs, and deer. It's a reflective layer behind the retina that bounces light back through the eye, making dim light more useful. It also explains why animals appear to have glowing eyes when headlights hit them. It's not magic, just clever evolutionary lighting design. Ancient Greek athletes didn't just oil their bodies for a nice sheen. After slathering themselves, they dusted on fine sand for grip and sun protection. The resulting grime, known as gloios, was scraped off post-match and somehow sold as a health tonic. Buyers believed it had mystical healing properties. Spoiler: it was mostly sweat, dirt, and leftover ambition. In medieval Japan, some ninjas used dried gourd halves as flotation devices to help them cross rivers. These lightweight hollow gourds allowed for relatively silent, if not graceful, passage across water. The boundary between a simple gardening tool and a makeshift weapon was, at times, surprisingly thin. Ice circles occasionally spin into existence on slow-moving rivers in winter. They form naturally when a section of water begins to rotate, shearing against surrounding ice and creating a near-perfect disk. Some grow several meters wide and rotate slowly, like nature's idea of a vinyl record, albeit one that plays only the sound of flowing water and physics. The mantid Empusa fasciata spends its downtime pretending to be a twig. It sways gently, even when there's no wind, to mimic plant movement and avoid predator attention. This is known as behavioral camouflage, or in simpler terms, doing absolutely nothing, but very convincingly. For a bug, it's a surprisingly effective career strategy. The northern fulmar, a seabird in the North Atlantic, defends its nest by projectile vomiting a putrid, oily goo. The substance can mat feathers so thoroughly that rival birds can't fly, turning an aerial dispute into a grounded problem. It's foul, it's efficient, and it's surprisingly effective. Avian conflict resolution at its most digestive. The tree shrew possesses one of the highest brain-to-body mass ratios among non-primate mammals, comparable in some respects to that of humans. Native to Southeast Asia, This unassuming creature has become a valuable model in neuroscience research. Though its brain is small in absolute terms, it is proportionally large relative to its body size, making the tree shrew a standout in the mammalian world, essentially the nerd of mammals, just with fur. The red-capped manakin, a bird from Central America, has turned its mating ritual into interpretive dance. To impress females, it moonwalks, literally, hopping backward rapidly along a branch while flapping its wings and snapping its legs. Scientists call it an explosive display. Females, apparently, call it irresistible. Nature, once again, blurs the line between courtship and choreography. Sisu, a Finnish word with no direct English translation, means persistence in the face of overwhelming odds. It's more than courage. It's determination, without a deadline. Finland's harsh winters may have inspired it, but the concept is national. Endure, adapt, don't whine. While other cultures give up, the Finnish just add more layers and keep walking. The skeleton flower turns transparent when it rains. Its white petals lose their color as water fills the plant's cells, making them clear until they dry out and turn white again. Found in the mountains of Japan and China, it doesn't do this for attention, just an odd quirk of cellular structure. But yes, it's basically the botanical version of a disappearing ink trick. The baobab tree, found in parts of Africa, can live over 2,000 years and store more than 100,000 liters of water inside its massive trunk. During droughts, it becomes a survival hub for animals and people alike. Some villages even use hollowed baobabs as storage huts or gathering spaces. It's not a tree, it's a natural water tank with bark. The archerfish doesn't need a bow. It spits jets of water to knock insects off overhanging leaves, compensating for how light bends at the water's surface. This means it calculates physics before it even gets breakfast. It's the only fish known to perform such real-time trigonometry, and it does it without ever attending school. In 1976, Soviet pilot Viktor Belenko defected to Japan in a MiG-25 Foxbat, a fighter jet the West had feared for years. When engineers finally examined it, they discovered its avionics ran on vacuum tubes. It wasn't futuristic. It was just nuclear-proof and surprisingly repairable. Basically, the USSR built a space-age plane with World War II-era TV parts, and it worked. Cyanobacteria, among Earth's oldest living organisms, were the first single-celled life forms found to have a circadian rhythm. Scientists discovered in the 1990s that even these microscopic beings keep time internally, syncing to day and night cycles. So, even a cell with no brain and no deadlines still knows when it's Monday. The yellow crazy ant, an invasive species named more for its erratic movement than any diagnosis, has formed supercolonies across places like Christmas Island. There, they've sprayed formic acid on millions of native red crabs, nearly wiping them out. Essentially, they're ants with chemical weapons and a complete disregard for biodiversity. In ancient China, imperial concubines were sometimes buried alive with deceased emperors, a practice rooted in the idea of serving the ruler in the afterlife. Over time, the policy became less popular, largely because no one enjoys being part of funeral decor. It was eventually banned as morality and public unrest caught up with royal tradition. The medieval Norse calendar divided the year into just 2 seasons, summer and winter. They didn't bother with months or weeks. Instead, they counted nights. It's the kind of system you create when your entire life is about surviving snowstorms and occasionally pillaging the neighbors. In ancient Persia, a particularly inventive punishment called scaphism involved trapping the victim between 2 boats, force-feeding them milk and honey, and letting insects handle the rest. It was slow, sticky, and spectacularly cruel. Imagine being a snack tray left out in the sun for days, except you're the tray. The deep-sea sponge Monorhaphis chuni anchors itself with a single silica structure that can grow over 10 feet tall and last for more than 11,000 years. That's longer than most civilizations. It's essentially a living glass tower at the bottom of the ocean, aging so slowly it makes tortoises look impatient. Spoken in central Sardinia, Logodoresi is a variety of Sardinian so faithful to Latin that some linguists consider it a distinct Romance language. It preserves phonetic features that disappeared elsewhere in Italy centuries ago. If modern Italian is the pop remix, Logodoresi is the untouched vinyl of ancient Rome. The freshwater flatworm Dugesia japonica can regrow its head after decapitation and still remember things it learned before. Scientists trained it to react to light, chopped off its head, and watched as the regenerated worm remembered the lesson. Apparently, its memories go deeper than its skull. In Maori cosmology, the god Tane separated his parents, the sky father Ranginui and the earth mother Papatuanuku, to make space for life. The sky's grief caused rain, a poetic explanation for weather, and also the earliest recorded account of a family breakup turning into climate change. Roman Emperor Elagabalus is said to have installed a mechanical ceiling that released rose petals onto his dinner guests. According to ancient sources, the engineering was more enthusiastic than precise. So many petals fell that some guests reportedly suffocated. Historians debate whether this was an unfortunate accident or simply Elagabalus's dramatic sense of spectacle. In Norse sagas, berserkers were not just wild warriors. They likely entered battle in trance-like states, possibly induced by fly-agaric mushrooms, chanting, or controlled breathing techniques. These practices may have rendered them seemingly immune to pain and filled with rage, transforming them into fearsome, almost unstoppable fighters. It was less a matter of poor anger management and more a case of chemically, or psychologically, enhanced Viking ferocity. The Vietnamese mossy frog, Thelederma corticale, blends into its environment so well that for years, scientists weren't sure it existed outside rumors. Its bumpy green skin looks exactly like moss on a wet rock, making it the amphibian equivalent of hiding in plain sight and winning. The Luban lock, named after a legendary Chinese carpenter, was an ancient puzzle lock made from interlocking wood pieces. Without knowing the right sequence, opening it was nearly impossible. It functioned like a 1,000-year-old mechanical password, minus the need to reset it every 3 months. The Enigma machine used by Nazi Germany during World War II had over 100 quintillion settings. Each message required knowing precise rotor arrangements to decode. German officials assumed it was uncrackable, until Allied cryptanalysts, including Polish mathematicians and Alan Turing, found just enough human error to break the system wide open. On Jupiter's moon, Io, volcanoes don't just erupt, they remodel the landscape. Its lava lakes constantly overturn, with solid crusts flipping like pancakes as molten rock bubbles underneath. It's the solar system's angriest griddle, where geology happens in real time, 24 hours a day. The fungus Mycosepurus smithii in the Amazon does away with males entirely. Its queen reproduces via parthenogenesis, making genetic copies of herself to form all female colonies. For these ants, teamwork makes the clone work, and no one's arguing over paternity. The Codex Serafinianus, created by Italian artist Luigi Serafini between 1976 and 1978, is a visual encyclopedia depicting imaginary flora, fauna, and technologies. It is written in a unique invented script that remains undeciphered despite analysis by linguists and cryptographers. The book spans approximately 360 pages and is noted for its surreal content and structural resemblance to scientific reference works. Assassin spiders, native to Madagascar and parts of Australia, prey on other spiders using elongated necks and jaws. Their chelicerae can exceed the length of their own bodies. They pluck web strands to mimic prey movements, drawing victims close before executing rapid, precise strikes. These spiders are nocturnal and rely on vibration detection rather than web building. Maize was sacred and central to Aztec life, agriculture, and religion, and theft, especially of corn, was punished severely, sometimes by death. However, the specific punishment of being buried alive for stealing maize is not documented in the Codex Mendoza or other major Aztec sources. The codex and historical records confirm that theft could result in death by stoning or execution, but not burial alive. The spiritual and practical importance of maize is well established, but the claimed punishment method lacks direct evidence in the primary sources cited. During World War II, Operation Fortitude was a British-led deception campaign designed to mislead German forces regarding the location of the D-Day invasion. Using inflatable tanks, dummy landing craft, and false radio traffic, it suggested an attack at Pas-de-Calais rather than Normandy. The operation was coordinated by the London Controlling Section and supported by the 20 Committee. When threatened, the Australian crucifix frog secretes a protein-based adhesive that rapidly hardens into a tough, elastic glue, even in wet conditions. This frog glue outperforms many commercial medical adhesives and is biocompatible, making it a promising material for surgical applications. Its ecological role remains uncertain, but is thought to deter predators or entrap threats. The Jingwei bird, from ancient Chinese mythology, is described in texts like the Shanhai Jing. It symbolizes a drowned spirit attempting to fill the ocean with twigs and stones. The story is interpreted as an allegory for perseverance and resistance to fate. It reflects early Chinese philosophical views on determination and cosmic balance. Xenohyla truncata, a Brazilian tree frog, is among the few amphibians known to consume fruit. It ingests pulp and disperses viable seeds through defecation, contributing to tropical forest ecology. Native to the coastal regions of Brazil, it exhibits frugivorous behavior uncommon among amphibians, which are generally insectivorous or carnivorous. In medieval Ireland, the legal system employed an honour price, or enechlan, assigning monetary value to individuals based on social status. Compensation for offenses, including insults, was paid accordingly, often in livestock or silver. Bards, poets, and musicians had defined legal ranks, and penalties for violating their dignity reflected their societal role under Brayan law. The Tagish Lake meteorite, which fell in British Columbia in January 2000, is a primitive carbonaceous chondrite rich in organic matter, but amino acid levels are extremely low, far less than in other meteorites like Murchison. Most detected amino acids likely result from terrestrial contamination, not pristine extraterrestrial material. The meteorite's parent body apparently lacked conditions for robust amino acid synthesis. The Solnhofen limestone in Bavaria, Germany, dates to the late Jurassic, approximately 150 million years ago. It preserves exceptional fossils, including soft tissues of jellyfish and dragonflies, due to anoxic lagoon conditions. The site yielded the Archaeopteryx lithographica fossil in 1861, a transitional form between non-avian dinosaurs and birds. During the 1630 to 1631 plague in Venice, plague doctors were appointed to inspect the sick, record outbreaks, and enforce quarantines. Often lacking formal medical training, they acted as public health officials. Wearing beaked masks and protective robes to guard against miasma, they embodied early preventive medicine, merging medical observation with administrative authority. At the ancient Maya city of Tikal, monumental structures like Temple 4 display architectural features that likely enhanced ceremonial acoustics. The use of limestone, broad staircases, and stepped geometry helped sound travel up and across plazas. These acoustic effects may have enabled priests or leaders to address large gatherings without mechanical amplification. The Bronze Age city of Ebla, located in modern Syria, contained an archive of over 17,000 cuneiform tablets written in Eblate and Sumerian. Discovered in the 1970s, the archive includes administrative, legal, and religious texts dating to around 2500 BCE. These documents revealed new deities and expanded understanding of early Semitic languages. In the 1st century AD, Hero of Alexandria invented the Aeolipile, a steam-powered rotating sphere that illustrated reaction propulsion principles. In the 16th century, Ottoman engineer Taqi al-Din described a steam turbine device that harnessed steam power for rotation. These devices were primarily demonstrative and preceded industrial steam engines by centuries. The parrotfish secretes a mucus cocoon each night while sleeping on coral reefs. This envelope masks its scent, reducing detection by nocturnal predators like moray eels. The mucus may also serve as a barrier against ectoparasites. This behavior is primarily observed in species such as Scarus and Chlorurus within tropical reef environments. The Mekong giant catfish, native to the Mekong River basin, can grow up to 3 meters in length and weigh over 270 kilograms. It is toothless and feeds on plankton through filter feeding. Classified as critically endangered by the IUCN, its population has declined due to overfishing and habitat disruption. In the Carpathian Mountains, a cryogenic process known as ice flower formation occurs when plant stems fracture and release water that rapidly freezes upon contact with cold air. This extruded moisture solidifies into thin, ribbon-like structures resembling petals. The phenomenon is facilitated by capillary action and sub-freezing temperatures, typically forming on certain herbaceous plants with porous stems. Anypniastes eximia, a pelagic deep-sea holothurian in the family Pelagothuriidae, is capable of swimming above the benthic zone using lateral fins. It exhibits bioluminescent properties, emitting defensive flashes when disturbed. The organism's gelatinous, semi-transparent body and locomotor adaptation have earned it the informal name headless chicken monster. It inhabits abyssal zones exceeding 1,000 meters in depth. Takanakui is a traditional ritual practiced in highland regions of Peru, notably in Chumbivilcas province, where community members resolve interpersonal disputes through public fistfights. Held annually in late December, this event follows a codified structure, allowing men and women to confront adversaries physically as a form of social arbitration prior to the new year. African pangolin species, particularly Smutsia gigantea and Phytagonus tricuspis, exhibit an extreme defensive mechanism whereby they curl into a tight ball, rendering themselves nearly impenetrable to predators, including lions. Their overlapping scales, composed of keratin, form a protective armor. Early European naturalists misclassified them as armored reptiles due to their morphology. Species of the genus Osedax, including Osedax mucoflorus, are marine annelids known as bone-eating worms. These organisms colonize the skeletons of dead whales on the seafloor, secreting acid to bore into bone tissue. They harbor endosymbiotic bacteria that metabolize lipids and collagen, effectively decomposing bone from within. The genus was first described in 2004. The mythological chimera of ancient Greece is traditionally associated with the region of Lycia in modern-day southwestern Turkey, particularly the area around Mount Chimera, famous for its eternal natural gas fires. While some modern scholars have speculated that ancient encounters with fossilized remains of large animals in Anatolia could have inspired composite creature myths, there is no direct evidence linking the chimera legend to misinterpretations of fossils. More commonly, the myth is thought to reflect local natural phenomena and symbolic associations with regional wildlife, such as lions, goats, and snakes, which were present in the area and may have influenced the creature's composite form. Shugendo monks, in medieval Japan, engaged in ascetic practices aimed at spiritual purification and the attainment of supernatural insight. These rituals included misogi, or standing beneath freezing waterfalls for extended durations. Practitioners sought to harmonize physical endurance with esoteric Buddhist and Shinto traditions, often conducted in remote mountain regions such as Mount Omine. Certain ant species, including Lasius niger and Formica rufa, engage in mutualistic relationships with aphids. They herd and protect aphid populations from predators in exchange for honeydew secretions. The ants stimulate honeydew release by stroking the aphids' abdomens with their antennae, an advanced form of interspecies resource exchange classified as trophobiosis. Shewanella onidensis, a facultative anaerobic bacterium, is capable of reducing metal oxides such as iron and manganese in place of oxygen during respiration. First isolated from Lake Oneida, New York, it is under investigation for use in microbial fuel cells and bioremediation. Its electron transport chain enables extracellular electron transfer to solid substrates. In Aztec mythology, Coyolxauhqui, the lunar deity, was dismembered by her brother Huitzilopochtli, the god of war, in a foundational myth of celestial order. The narrative explains the moon's cratered appearance as her fragmented body. This cosmogonic story was integral to Aztec temple rituals, particularly at the Templo Mayor in Tenochtitlan. The Cascajal block, discovered in Veracruz, Mexico, contains glyphs believed to represent the earliest known writing system in Mesoamerica, attributed to the Olmec civilization. The 32 unique symbols inscribed on the serpentine slab date to approximately 900 BCE. The script remains undeciphered, but is recognized as a precursor to later Mesoamerican scripts. Researchers at the University of Tokyo developed a polymer glass material in 2017 capable of self-healing at ambient temperature. Composed of polyether thioureas, the glass rebonds at fracture sites when pressed together for under 30 seconds without external heat or adhesive agents. This advancement has potential applications in structural and consumer materials. Geosmin, a bicyclic alcohol produced by actinomycete bacteria, such as Streptomyces, is responsible for the characteristic earthy odor of soil. Human olfactory receptors can detect it at concentrations as low as 5 parts per trillion. The sensitivity may reflect evolutionary adaptation to locate potable water sources through indirect environmental cues. The Sami drum, used by the indigenous Sami people of northern Scandinavia, functioned as a cosmological tool rather than a purely musical instrument. The drum's surface was divided into symbolic zones representing spiritual, natural, and human realms. Shamans used rhythmic drumming to facilitate trance states and communicate with spiritual entities during ritual practices. Cuprea vitis metallodurans is a metal-tolerant bacterium found in gold-rich environments, such as mine waste. It survives high concentrations of toxic metals by precipitating soluble gold complexes into solid particles, aiding biomineralization. Isolates have been collected from sites in Australia and Belgium, supporting its role in geochemical cycling and secondary gold formation. Polynesian outrigger canoes employed asymmetrical hulls and lateral support floats to provide hydrodynamic stability during open ocean navigation. Constructed using stone tools and organic materials, these vessels allowed pre-modern Polynesians to traverse distances exceeding 3,000 kilometers. Navigators relied on celestial positioning, avian flight paths, and wave pattern interpretation for wayfinding. Ibn al-Haytham, an 11th-century Arab polymath, authored Kitab al-Manazir, where he accurately described vision as a process of light entering the eye, challenging prior emission-based models. His experimental methods laid foundational principles for modern optics, including the laws of reflection and refraction, centuries ahead of European counterparts. The ancient inhabitants of the Llanos de Moxos in present-day Bolivia engineered over 20,000 earthworks, including mounds, canals, and fish ponds, across the Amazon basin. These structures, dating between 500 BCE and 1400 CE, formed a large-scale agroecological system for flood management and agriculture. Remote sensing and satellite imagery revealed the network in the early 2000s. During the Edo period in Japan, around 1603 to 1868, firefighters known as hikeshi wore multi-layered coats soaked in water, not for dousing flames, but for protection during demolition. Their primary role was to prevent fires from spreading through tightly packed wooden buildings by tearing down structures near the blaze. Urban fire breaks were often more effective than extinguishing fires directly in such dense, flammable environments. In 2023, Researchers exploring hydrothermal vents off Costa Rica's Pacific coast discovered a deep-sea octopus nursery at a depth exceeding 2,500 meters. Hundreds of Musoctopus robustus females were found brooding eggs near warm water seeps. The site challenged previous assumptions that deep-sea cephalopods avoided such thermal habitats for reproduction. And if they can handle the pressure 4,000 meters down, you can handle the pressure of clicking subscribe. Go on. Don't be shy like a brooding octopus. Ancient Egyptian scribes used a script called hieratic, a simplified cursive form of hieroglyphs. It emerged as early as 2600 BCE and was used for everyday writing, including medical texts, administrative records, and religious literature. Hieratic was written with reed pens on papyrus and allowed for much faster writing than formal hieroglyphic inscriptions. In the Peruvian Andes, traditional farmers use man-made ponds called cochas to manage seasonal water. These depressions collect rainfall during the wet season and release it gradually during dry months. The system supports sustainable agriculture in high-altitude environments and reflects knowledge of water management that dates back over 1,000 years. The Siachen Glacier, located in the eastern Karakoram Range, has been a site of military deployment since 1984. At elevations over 5,400 meters, it is considered the world's highest active combat zone. Environmental hazards such as avalanches, hypoxia, and sub-zero temperatures have caused more fatalities than direct conflict between Indian and Pakistani forces. Roman aqueducts were engineered with remarkable precision. Some channels, such as those in the Aqua Claudia system, descended at a gradient of roughly 1 inch per 300 feet. This allowed water to flow naturally over long distances using gravity alone. The system supplied cities with fresh water for public baths, fountains, and private households. During the American Civil War, physicians began documenting cases of phantom limb pain, a sensation of feeling in amputated limbs. Dr. Silas Weir Mitchell, a Union Army surgeon, studied these cases in depth and became one of the early contributors to the field of neurology, particularly in understanding nerve trauma and regeneration. In 1947, the U.S. Army launched a V-2 rocket under the Blossom Project, carrying live fruit flies aboard. Reaching over 100 kilometers above Earth, the mission marked the first biological experiment in space. The flies returned alive, offering early insights into the effects of cosmic radiation and zero gravity on living organisms. The Japanese yew produces alkaloids called taxines, which are highly toxic to humans and animals. However, compounds derived from related yew species were later used to create paclitaxel, a chemotherapy agent. Paclitaxel interferes with cell division and is now used to treat cancers such as ovarian, breast, and lung. Göbekli Tepe, located in southeastern Turkey, dates back to over 9,500 BCE and consists of massive T-shaped limestone pillars arranged in circular enclosures. The site predates agriculture and permanent settlements, suggesting that large-scale ritual structures may have preceded the development of farming societies. Its purpose remains under investigation, but evidence points to early organized religious activity. In the early 1900s, a dentist known as Painless Parker advertised his services by pulling teeth in public with a live band playing nearby. His promotional methods were controversial, but he eventually established one of the first dental franchises in the United States. At its peak, the Parker dental system operated dozens of offices across the country. The Inanga zither, native to Rwanda and surrounding regions, is played by plucking strings while reciting or singing poetry. The instrument's construction and tuning vary between regions and families, with oral traditions preserving each version. It holds cultural significance not only as a musical tool, but also as a medium for storytelling and historical memory. Several species of deep-sea anglerfish, such as those in the Ceratidae family, exhibit a form of sexual parasitism. The male attaches to the female's body, eventually fusing circulatory systems. Over time, the male's organs degenerate except for the testes, allowing him to function solely as a reproductive appendage. On the Greek island of Eura, Cyclops Cave contains archaeological layers dating back over 10,000 years. Excavations have uncovered tools, pottery, and obsidian, suggesting early maritime trade and subsistence through deep-sea fishing. The cave's continuous human occupation offers insights into Mesolithic lifeways in the Aegean region. The Antikythera shipwreck, discovered in 1900 off the coast of Greece, contained a cargo of luxury goods, including bronze sculptures and fine glassware. Among its most notable artifacts was the Antikythera mechanism, an ancient analog device for tracking astronomical cycles, dating to the 1st century BCE. The ship likely originated from the eastern Mediterranean. The Saharan silver ant is the fastest known ant species, capable of moving at speeds of nearly 1 meter per second, roughly 108 body lengths per second. Its reflective hairs help manage thermal radiation, allowing it to forage during peak desert heat when most predators are inactive. The Byzantine military used a flammable weapon known as Greek fire, first deployed in the 7th century CE. Believed to be a petroleum-based mixture, it could ignite on water and was delivered via siphon or pots. The exact chemical composition remains unknown, as its formula was closely guarded and eventually lost. Nightingale floors, or uguisubari, were installed in castles and temples during Japan's Edo period. Constructed with specially designed joints and nails, these floorboards emitted chirping sounds when stepped on. The mechanism served as an acoustic alarm system to alert occupants of approaching intruders, particularly in high-security residences like Kyoto's Nijo Castle. In 1976, NASA's Viking 1 orbiter photographed a region of Mars known as Cydonia, where a mesa appeared to resemble a human face. Later missions, including Mars Global Surveyor in 1998, confirmed it was a natural formation. However, the initial image contributed to widespread public speculation about extraterrestrial life for many years. The term climate is derived from the Greek word klima, meaning slope or inclination. In early geographical texts, it referred to the angle of the Earth's surface relative to the Sun, influencing daylight duration and seasonal variation. This conceptual understanding of climate predates modern meteorology and was integral to ancient geographic and astronomical systems. Light pillars are an atmospheric optical phenomenon formed by the reflection of artificial or natural light off hexagonal ice crystals suspended in the atmosphere. These vertically aligned crystals act as flat mirrors, producing luminous columns of light that appear to extend above or below the original source. The effect is typically observed in cold climates under stable air conditions. In the early 1980s, theoretical physicist Ronald Mallet proposed a design for a time travel mechanism utilizing circulating laser light to generate frame-dragging effects in spacetime. His model, rooted in Einstein's general theory of relativity, suggests that closed time-like curves could form under specific conditions. Mallet's equations have been published in peer-reviewed physics journals but remain purely theoretical. The ancient Thracians, an Indo-European people inhabiting parts of the Balkans, practiced ritual tattooing as a cultural marker of nobility and spiritual strength. The Greek historian Herodotus recorded that, within Thracian society, tattoos symbolized honor rather than punishment. This contrasts with later Greco-Roman views, where body markings were often associated with servitude or criminality. In 1935, Albert Einstein, Boris Podolsky, and Nathan Rosen introduced the EPR paradox, a thought experiment designed to critique the completeness of quantum mechanics. They described how entangled particles could exhibit instantaneous correlations across spatial distances, a phenomenon later confirmed experimentally and foundational to quantum teleportation and non-locality studies in the late 20th century. The Moriori people of the Chatham Islands, a Polynesian group distinct from the Maori, adhered to a strict code of nonviolence codified in Nunuku's law. Despite their pacifist traditions, when the islands were invaded in the 19th century by Maori from mainland New Zealand, the Moriori did not resist. The result was widespread enslavement and significant population decline. In the 19th century, French engineers developed experimental solar furnaces known as forges solaires, using parabolic mirrors to concentrate sunlight. These devices achieved temperatures exceeding 3,000 degrees Celsius and demonstrated the potential of solar thermal energy. Early models were used to melt metals, including steel, and influenced later solar power research. Genomic sequencing of the Sakak individual, who lived in western Greenland approximately 4,000 years ago, revealed a genetic lineage distinct from modern Inuit and Native American populations. DNA was extracted from hair preserved in permafrost and published in 2010. This marked the first complete genome reconstructed from ancient human remains. The bacterium Magnetospirillum magneticum possesses intracellular structures known as magnetosomes, chains of magnetite crystals, that enable geomagnetic orientation. These structures function as a biological compass, allowing the bacterium to navigate along Earth's magnetic field lines, particularly in sediment layers with low oxygen concentration. It is a model organism in studies of biomineralization and magnetotaxis. Inscriptions at the Temple of Edfu, constructed during the Ptolemaic period in Egypt, describe a cosmogony in which a primordial mound rose from the Nun, a boundless watery chaos. This mythological motif parallels geological theories concerning the emergence of terrestrial landmasses from ancient oceans and reflects the symbolic integration of environment and belief in Egyptian religion. Prior to the widespread use of barbed wire in the late 19th century, settlers in the American Midwest and Plains regions employed Maclura pomifera, commonly known as Osage orange, as natural fencing. The tree's dense, thorn-covered branches created impenetrable hedgerows. These living barriers, sometimes called hedge apples, were effective at containing livestock and delineating property. The Ainu, an indigenous people of northern Japan, regarded bears as deities temporarily inhabiting animal bodies. In the Ayomante ceremony, bear cubs were captured, raised in human care, and ritually sacrificed to return their spirits to the divine realm. In 1978, a fossil site in Montana yielded a nesting ground of Maiasaura peeblesaurum, a hadrosaurid dinosaur. The discovery included adult skeletons positioned near nests containing juvenile remains and unhatched eggs. This provided the first paleontological evidence of postnatal care among non-avian dinosaurs, reshaping theories about dinosaur social behavior. Sequoyah, a member of the Cherokee Nation, developed the Cherokee syllabary in the early 19th century without prior literacy or exposure to writing systems. Completed around 1821, the script comprises 85 characters, representing syllables in the Cherokee language. It facilitated widespread literacy and remains in use today, particularly in educational and cultural contexts. In ancient Chinese court culture, bat-shaped ornaments were commonly worn or carried during ceremonies. The word for bat, fu, is a homophone for the word meaning blessing in Mandarin Chinese. These symbolic items were intended to invoke good fortune and were integrated into textiles, carvings, and amulets as auspicious motifs. Tummo meditation, practiced by Tibetan Buddhist monks, involves controlled breathing and visualization techniques that raise core body temperature. Scientific studies have shown that practitioners can increase peripheral body heat, allowing them to dry wet sheets in freezing conditions. The method is part of the inner heat yoga tradition within the Vajrayana lineage. In the city of Teotihuacan, active between approximately 100 BCE and 600 CE, artisans fashioned ritual mirrors from polished obsidian. These volcanic glass objects, often circular, were used in divinatory and ceremonial contexts, and may have served in astronomical alignment or solar observation due to their reflective properties. The stained glass of Chartres Cathedral in France, constructed primarily during the 12th and 13th centuries, contains blue and red panes produced with cobalt and copper oxides. These windows filter ultraviolet light and have retained their vibrancy for over 8 centuries. The precise coloration methods remain a subject of chemical and art historical research. On the Isle of Skye in Scotland, Middle Jurassic-era dinosaur footprints are preserved in tidal rock formations dating to approximately 170 million years ago. The trackways, left by sauropods and theropods, become visible only during low tide. Their preservation offers insight into early dinosaur locomotion in coastal environments. Synesthesia is a neurological condition in which stimulation of one sensory modality involuntarily triggers experiences in another. Types include grapheme color, where letters or numbers evoke specific hues, and chromesthesia, where sounds induce color perception. Studies suggest it occurs in approximately 4% of the population and may have a genetic component. The ancient Mayan calendar system comprises 3 interlocking components: the tzolk'in, the hab, and the long count, which tracks historical time in baktuns. This integrated system allowed the Maya to record dates spanning thousands of years with precision and symbolic depth. The Moche civilization of pre-Columbian Peru, active between approximately 100 and 800 CE, produced ceramic portrait vessels depicting individual human faces with high realism. These stirrup spout vessels included detailed features such as wrinkles, scars, and expressions, representing one of the earliest known traditions of individualized portraiture in the ancient world. In Icelandic folklore, 13 seasonal figures known as the Yule lads visit children during the Christmas period. Each is associated with specific behaviors, including spoonlicker and window peeper. Historically, these figures were derived from older mythological traditions involving trolls, specifically the ogress Grýla, and were used to enforce social norms through fear-based storytelling. In the 1970s, researchers at Stanford University developed the concept of the Stanford Torus, a rotating space habitat designed to simulate Earth-like gravity through centrifugal force. The structure was envisioned to house up to 10,000 inhabitants and remains one of the most technically detailed proposals for long-term space colonization. Wurtzite boron nitride, a rare polymorph of boron nitride, has been predicted through theoretical modeling to exceed diamond in hardness under specific pressure conditions. Its hexagonal crystal structure can reconfigure at high energy states, making it a subject of ongoing materials science research for cutting and abrasive applications. Archaeological excavations in Tennessee uncovered tattooing tools estimated to be approximately 3,600 years old. Constructed from sharpened turkey bones and stained with carbon-based pigment, these instruments predate comparable tools found in Polynesia and Egypt, and represent the earliest known evidence of tattooing in North America. Alexithymia is a neuropsychological condition characterized by significant difficulty in identifying and expressing emotions. Although it is not classified as a standalone psychiatric disorder, alexithymia is associated with reduced interhemispheric connectivity in the corpus callosum and may impair emotional processing, empathy, and interpersonal communication. Analysis of Comet 67P Churyumov-Gerasimenko by the European Space Agency's Rosetta probe revealed the presence of volatile compounds, including hydrogen sulfide, ammonia, and hydrogen cyanide. These substances produce a combination of odors analogous to rotten eggs, cat urine, bitter almonds, and formaldehyde, offering insight into the chemical composition of primordial celestial bodies. Navigators from the Marshall Islands historically utilized stick charts to map ocean swells and currents. These navigational aids consisted of curved wooden rods to represent wave patterns and shells to indicate island locations. The system functioned as a form of maritime cartography transmitted through oral instruction rather than written documentation. Norilsk, located in northern Siberia, is one of the largest industrial centers constructed on continuous permafrost. It is inaccessible by road for most of the year and emits approximately 2 million metric tons of sulfur dioxide and other pollutants annually, making it one of the most environmentally degraded urban zones globally. The tau neutrino, the third flavor of neutrino predicted by the Standard Model of Particle Physics, was directly detected in the year 2000 by the donut experiment at Fermilab. It completes the lepton family and is characterized by extremely weak interactions with matter. The largest known beaver dam, located in Wood Buffalo National Park in Alberta, Canada, measures over 850 meters in length. Discovered via satellite imagery in the 2000s, the structure spans remote marshland and is believed to have been under continuous construction for multiple decades. The Hopi people of the American Southwest maintain ceremonial agricultural calendars based on lunar cycles and solar solstice events. These are aligned using stone cairns and natural landmarks, including mountain silhouettes, and govern planting schedules, initiation ceremonies, and meteorological predictions. Medieval European alchemical texts often reference the green lion and red lion as symbolic stages in the process of chrysopoeia, the transmutation of base metals into gold. The green lion is commonly interpreted as a symbol for a powerful acidic substance, sometimes associated with vitriol or, in later interpretations, hydrochloric acid, while the red lion is linked to the final stage of the Philosopher's Stone or to substances like aqua regia. The Temple of Kukulkan at Chichen Itza, constructed by the Maya, incorporates deliberate acoustic features. A handclap at the base of the pyramid's staircases produces an echo that mimics the call of the quetzal, a sacred bird in Mesoamerican culture. Studies confirm that the chirp effect results from the stair-step geometry. Bezoars are hardened masses formed in the gastrointestinal tracts of animals, particularly ruminants. During the Middle Ages, these were believed to serve as universal antidotes to poison and were embedded in jewelry worn by European aristocracy. Their value was based on perceived medicinal properties rather than empirical pharmacology. Project A119 was a United States Air Force plan developed in the 1950s to detonate a nuclear device on the lunar surface. The objective was to demonstrate technological superiority during the Cold War. The project was canceled due to concerns about public perception and the possibility of mission failure. Caulerpa lentilifera, commonly referred to as sea grapes, is a species of edible green algae native to the Indo-Pacific region. The spherical structures are grape-like vesicles used in culinary applications across Southeast Asia. The algae are cultivated in coastal ponds and consumed for their briny taste and nutrient content. A 2011 study published in Frontiers in Zoology documented that domestic dogs preferentially align their bodies along the north-south axis of Earth's magnetic field during defecation. The phenomenon was observed under calm magnetic conditions, though the biological mechanism remains undetermined. The Ganges shark, Glyphis gangeticus, a critically endangered elasmo branch species, is native to freshwater river systems in the Indian subcontinent. It has rarely been observed in the wild and is classified under the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species Appendix II due to habitat loss and anthropogenic pressures. During the 18th century, barbers in Europe commonly performed surgical and dental procedures, including tooth extraction and bloodletting. The red and white striped barber pole symbolizes the intertwining of blood and bandages. The professions of barbering and surgery were officially separated in England in 1745 by royal charter. The screaming hairy armadillo, native to South America, produces high-pitched vocalizations when alarmed, a trait that inspired its name. Unlike most armadillo species, it is also covered in unusually dense fur, which provides insulation in its arid habitat. This blend of noise and fuzz makes it one of the more unexpectedly dramatic mammals in the region. The Strasbourg Cathedral in France houses an astronomical clock originally constructed in the 16th century. The mechanism calculates solar and lunar eclipses, tracks planetary motion, and features mechanical figures that chime on the hour. It represents one of the earliest large-scale integrations of astronomical science and public architecture. The Zuni people of the American Southwest maintain a spiritual belief system centered on kachinas, spirit beings represented through ceremonial dolls. Each kachina symbolizes a specific natural force, ancestor, or moral archetype. With over 200 unique identities, the tradition is preserved through oral transmission rather than written texts. The Atacama Large Millimeter Array in northern Chile operates at an elevation exceeding 5,000 meters above sea level. Due to the thin atmosphere, technicians working on site require supplemental oxygen. The location was selected for its low humidity and minimal radio interference, making it ideal for high-frequency astronomical observation. In 1971, Apollo 15 astronauts placed a 3.5-inch aluminum sculpture named Fallen Astronaut, along with a commemorative plaque on the lunar surface. The memorial honors 14 astronauts and cosmonauts who had died by that point in the pursuit of space exploration. Zheng He, a Ming Dynasty admiral, led 7 major naval expeditions between 1405 and 1433. His fleet included massive treasure ships, which some historical accounts claim were over 400 feet long, though many modern scholars believe they were likely smaller. These voyages extended China's maritime presence across the Indian Ocean, reaching as far as East Africa, and took place decades before the onset of European expansion by sea. Tibetan Buddhist monks practice a ritual known as sand mandala creation, where intricate geometric patterns are formed using colored sand. Upon completion, the mandala is ritually dismantled, symbolizing the impermanence of material constructs. Weeks of meticulous labor vanish in minutes, on purpose. In 1999, researchers identified Thermococcus gammatolerans, an extremophilic archaeon capable of surviving gamma radiation levels exceeding 30 kilograms. Isolated from hydrothermal vent ecosystems, it withstands doses that would destroy human tissue within minutes. It does not glow in the dark, but probably should. Ancient Greek architects utilized passive design features such as courtyards, shaded porticos, and building orientation to promote natural ventilation and cooling. While not as technologically advanced as later wind catcher systems in the Middle East, these elements contributed to comfortable indoor environments and have inspired some modern sustainable design strategies. The Kumbh Mela, a Hindu pilgrimage and ritual bathing event, drew more than 120 million participants in 2013. Its scheduling relies on planetary alignments calculated through traditional astrological methods. Despite its scale, the event maintains structured crowd management and logistics. Several plant species in Australia exhibit fire-adapted germination. Seeds from genera such as Banksia and Grevillea only sprout after exposure to smoke or thermal shock. Some species even wait for the chemical signal of charred neighbors before making an entrance. No fire, no party. The steppe eagle has been observed following active wildfires to hunt small mammals and reptiles escaping the flames. This behavior classifies it among the few avian species that utilize fire as an ecological hunting tool, effectively turning chaos into opportunity. The Yamnaya culture, originating in the Pontic-Caspian steppe over 5,000 years ago, significantly influenced the genetic and linguistic development of modern Europeans. Their migrations introduced Indo-European languages and wheeled transport technologies to Central Europe, reshaping prehistoric demographics. Early studies suggested that the genome of the tardigrade contained up to 17% foreign DNA acquired through horizontal gene transfer from bacteria, fungi, and archaea. However, subsequent research has shown that the actual proportion of foreign DNA is much lower, comparable to that found in other animals. While tardigrades are renowned for their resilience to extreme temperatures, radiation, and dehydration, their extraordinary survival abilities are now attributed more to unique protective proteins and cellular mechanisms than to an unusually high level of horizontal gene transfer. Certain orb-weaving spiders design webs that reflect ultraviolet light, mimicking the appearance of nectar-bearing flowers. This mimicry attracts pollinating insects that mistake the web for a feeding site, directing them straight into the predator's capture zone, a textbook case of predatory optics. If spiders can trick bugs with fake flowers, I can trick you into subscribing. Just kidding. No trap here, just more weird nature facts if you click that button. Sri Lankan irrigation engineers constructed reservoirs known as wewa as early as the 4th century BCE. These structures, built to manage monsoon water and seasonal flooding, are often linked by underground channels. Many remain functional today, suggesting their builders understood sustainability centuries before the term existed. The bas-relief panels at Angkor Wat contain solar and lunar alignments embedded in mythological depictions. These carvings include solstice and equinox markers used for regulating agricultural planting and royal ceremonies. Constructed in the early 12th century during the reign of Suryavarman II, the temple's architecture incorporates astronomical axes that align with the rising sun during key solar events. The Chamacoco people of Paraguay maintain a cosmology of multiple sky and underworld layers. Their shamans use entheogenic substances, such as tobacco or plant-derived hallucinogens, during trance states to symbolically ascend these tiers. This structure, recorded ethnographically in the 20th century, represents one of the most detailed stratified cosmologies in indigenous South America. In Central Asia, Kazakh and Kyrgyz herders train golden eagles for predation control. Captured as chicks and raised in captivity, these birds can subdue prey such as foxes and even juvenile wolves. Their talons exert over 700 pounds per square inch of pressure, and formal falconry festivals continue to document this traditional technique. Dickinsonia, an Ediacaran biota fossil dated to approximately 557 million years ago, has yielded trace cholesterol molecules. Identified in a 2018 study by Ilya Bobrovsky and colleagues, this biomarker constitutes some of the earliest chemical evidence for complex metazoan life, predating the Cambrian explosion by at least 20 million years. The ancestral Puebloans, or Anasazi, constructed the Sun Dagger site at Fajada Butte, New Mexico, in the 11th century. At summer solstice, a shaft of sunlight passes through stone slabs and illuminates a spiral petroglyph. This demonstrates early solar tracking systems integrated into ritual and calendrical architecture. The Nenets of the Yamal Peninsula migrate seasonally across over 1,000 kilometers with reindeer herds. Their conical tents, known as chums, are made of layered reindeer hides and supported by wooden poles. Oriented to manage cross-ventilation, the dwellings maintain stable interior temperatures in subarctic environments reaching -50 degrees Celsius. In 2019, researchers from the University of Vienna observed wild Goffin's cockatoos crafting compound tools. One individual used 3 distinct tool types sequentially to extract food from a container. The behavior demonstrated planning and tool chain cognition comparable to primates, marking the first such observation in wild parrots. The Bagan Archaeological Zone in Myanmar includes over 2,000 surviving Buddhist monuments. Infrared imaging has revealed layers of murals beneath surface paint, some dating back to the 11th century. These multi-generational artworks document stylistic and religious transitions across dynasties and include hidden iconography not visible to the naked eye. Sputnik 2, launched by the Soviet Union on November 3, 1957, carried Laika, the first living animal in orbit. The mission lacked re-entry capability. Telemetry data confirmed Laika died of heat stress several hours after launch. The experiment provided early data on biological responses to weightlessness and orbital radiation. Experimental research at Rockefeller University in 2016 demonstrated that human eyes can detect single photons under controlled conditions. Subjects in a dark adapted environment were able to identify photon presence at statistically significant rates. The result places human visual sensitivity at the theoretical limit of quantum light detection. The Nanticoke of Delaware preserved oral traditions using wampum belts, beaded strands with symbolic patterns. These patterns encoded treaties, genealogies, and ceremonial events. Though not a literal written script, each sequence served as a mnemonic framework, anchoring memory across generations. Several preserved examples remain in museum and tribal archives. Howler monkeys of the genus Alouatta possess an enlarged hyoid bone, allowing sound amplification over distances up to 5 kilometers. This bony chamber resonates low-frequency calls used for territorial signaling. Acoustic studies in Central American rainforests have confirmed the correlation between hyoid size and vocal range across species. The Korean Bongwan system classifies familial lineages by ancestral region, not surname. Historically used to prevent marriages within the same ancestral origin, it persists in contemporary matchmaking. Legal restrictions were lifted in 1997, though social observance remains among certain conservative families, particularly when the same Bongwan is involved. The skewed arrangement and growth rings on Graptomys shells develop seasonally and can be used to estimate age and growth. However, these patterns do not follow a Fibonacci sequence or golden ratio-based spiral. Instead, the arrangement is determined by the species' developmental biology and environmental factors. Wolbachia is a genus of intracellular bacteria that infects over 60% of insect species. It manipulates host reproduction through cytoplasmic incompatibility, parthenogenesis induction, feminization of genetic males, and embryonic lethality. Researchers have introduced Wolbachia into Aedes aegypti mosquito populations to reduce transmission of arboviruses such as dengue, Zika, and chikungunya. Field trials have demonstrated population suppression and reduced viral load in endemic regions. Traditional Finnish sauna practice includes the use of the vita, bundles of birch branches used to gently strike the skin. This stimulates peripheral circulation and releases volatile organic compounds, including salicylate derivatives, from the leaves. The practice is rooted in pre-Christian purification rituals and remains an important part of Finnish cultural wellness traditions. Preondactylus bufferini, a small Triassic pterosaur from present-day Italy, had a wingspan of approximately 40 centimeters. Discovered in 1982, fossil evidence suggests it likely glided between trees rather than sustained powered flight. Its bone structure supports transitional development from arboreal locomotion to full aerial adaptation. The Tlingit of Alaska carved cedar totem poles that encoded clan ownership, oral histories, and social status. These poles served as mnemonic devices for recording land rights, lineage, and legal testimony, with symbols and animals arranged hierarchically, according to matrilineal descent systems. While totem poles are visually striking, their primary function has always been to communicate social and historical information, rather than serving merely decorative or aesthetic purposes. The Siberian Traps eruption, dating to approximately 252 million years ago, covered over 7 million square kilometers with basaltic lava. Volatile emissions of carbon dioxide and sulfur dioxide altered atmospheric chemistry and ocean pH, contributing to the Permian-Triassic extinction event that eliminated over 90% of marine species. The Onmyoji of Heian period Japan were trained in yin-yang theory, Taoist cosmology, and calendrical divination. Officially sanctioned by the imperial court, they conducted rituals for disaster prevention, spirit pacification, and geomantic forecasting. The position was formalized under the Bureau of Onmyo during the 8th century. The larval stage of a sea squirt develops both a notochord and a simple cerebral ganglion, characteristics typically associated with vertebrates. However, once it attaches to a surface as an adult, it digests its own neural structures and becomes sessile. This transformation reflects a shift from active locomotion to a fixed filter-feeding lifestyle, highlighting an unusual life cycle among chordates. Certain female aphids reproduce through a form of parthenogenesis known as heterochronic parthenogenesis, in which the offspring are born already carrying developing embryos. This method bypasses the need for fertilization and allows for rapid population growth under favorable conditions. It is one of the few examples in the insect world where generations can overlap within a single individual. The duodenum, approximately 25 centimeters in length, is the initial segment of the small intestine and receives partially digested material from the stomach. It also receives secretions from the pancreas and liver that aid in chemical digestion. The internal surface features plicae circulares, which increase the surface area to optimize digestion, although nutrient absorption primarily occurs in later intestinal sections. Pseudoliparis swirae, commonly known as the Mariana snailfish, has been recorded at depths exceeding 8,000 meters in the Mariana Trench. It lacks a gas-filled swim bladder and instead relies on pressure-tolerant enzymes and cell membranes. Its physiology allows it to survive extreme hydrostatic pressure that would typically denature proteins in other vertebrate species. Bonobos are one of the few primate species with predominantly matriarchal social structures. Rather than resolving conflict through aggression, bonobos frequently use socio-sexual behavior to diffuse tension and establish social bonds. These practices have led researchers to study bonobos as a contrasting model to more hierarchical and male-dominated primate societies. The Erdapfel globe, created in 1492 by cartographer Martin Behaim, is the oldest surviving terrestrial globe. It predates Columbus's return from the Americas and therefore lacks any representation of the Western Hemisphere. The globe includes speculative depictions of Asia and fictional islands, reflecting the geographic knowledge and imagination of late 15th century Europe. In Persian mythology, the simurgh is a large, benevolent bird said to live for 1,700 years. Legends describe it as a source of healing wisdom, with feathers believed to cure illness and guide rulers. The simurgh appears in classical Persian literature, including Ferdowsi's Shahnameh, where it plays a protective role in heroic narratives. Promethium, a lanthanide element with atomic number 61, does not naturally occur in Earth's crust due to its radioactivity and short half-life. It was first identified in 1945 from fission products at Oak Ridge National Laboratory. The element is named after Prometheus, referencing its synthetic origin and association with nuclear science rather than natural discovery. The Taino people of the Caribbean are documented to have chewed tree resin from plants such as the sapodilla for oral hygiene and recreation. When Europeans arrived in the 15th century, they observed and sometimes adopted this practice, marking one of the earliest examples of cultural exchange involving chewing gum across the Atlantic. A skullcap, found in Petrolona Cave in Greece in the 1950s, has been dated to more than 200,000 years ago. Its classification remains debated, with some researchers attributing it to early Homo sapiens or an archaic human species. The site has contributed to discussions on early human migration into Europe. The Benin bronzes, created by artists of the Benin Kingdom using the lost wax casting method, date back to the 13th century. The technical sophistication of these works, including detailed reliefs and lifelike portraits, was not fully understood by 19th-century European collectors. Many pieces were taken during colonial expeditions and are now housed in foreign museums. The palace complex at Knossos, associated with the Minoan civilization, features a network of more than 1,000 rooms. Its multi-level architecture and intricate corridors have been linked by some scholars to the myth of the labyrinth. Archaeological evidence also shows ceremonial bull leaping, suggesting that ritual and spatial complexity were closely intertwined in Minoan culture. The earliest confirmed surgical amputation was identified in a human skeleton dated to approximately 31,000 years ago, found in Borneo's Liang Tabo cave. The individual exhibited a healed distal leg amputation with smoothed bone edges and no sign of infection. This discovery predates previously known surgical procedures by over 20,000 years and provides evidence of advanced prehistoric medical practices and post-operative care. Wayfinders, traditional navigators from Micronesia and Polynesia, used a non-instrumental system of ocean navigation that relied on detecting long-range wave interference patterns. By memorizing the rhythm and direction of ocean swells while blindfolded, they could identify the presence and location of islands beyond the visible horizon. This skill was passed down orally and formed a core component of transoceanic navigation across the Pacific for centuries. Tungurahua is an active stratovolcano in Ecuador, with a recorded history of eruptions dating back to the 16th century. It last erupted in 2016 and remains one of the most closely monitored volcanoes in the Andes region. While some volcanoes have crater lakes that change color due to chemical reactions, Tungurahua is primarily known for its explosive eruptions and does not have a documented red crater lake. The Inca constructed suspension bridges made of woven ichu grass that spanned distances up to 30 meters across deep gorges. These bridges were part of the Capac Ñan road system and were rebuilt annually by local communities through a coordinated effort. The construction used no metal or fasteners and relied entirely on tension and braiding, demonstrating advanced civil engineering using biodegradable materials. The Romani language, spoken by Roma populations across Europe and parts of the Middle East, originates from the Indo-Aryan branch of the Indo-European language family. Linguistic analysis shows core similarities with Sanskrit and modern languages of northern India. Over centuries of migration, Romani has integrated lexical influences from over 40 languages, including Greek, Persian, Romanian, and various Slavic tongues, creating highly regionalized dialects. In 2010, researchers studying microbial life in California's Mono Lake reported the discovery of a strain of Halomonidaceae bacteria that appeared capable of incorporating arsenic into its DNA in place of phosphorus. This controversial finding sparked widespread debate and discussion about the potential for alternative biochemistries and life's adaptability in extreme environments. Thanks for watching. I hope you found these stories as fascinating as I did. It's incredible how much wonder and weirdness is hidden in the corners of our world. If you learned something new or had a favorite fact, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear which one stuck with you. And if you're into content that mixes science, history, and storytelling in bite-sized, thought-provoking ways, consider subscribing. I'll see you in the next video.
If you've ever thought history was boring or biology was dry, this video is about to change your mind. These facts are so unexpected, they sound made up, except they're not. What you're about to hear is absolutely worth your time. Get ready.
So many questions. Why is the world spinning? Why is the moon keeping its orbit? Can rockets fly backwards? The facts you didn't know you needed. The Useless Show.
The Hallstatt salt mine in Austria contains a wooden staircase built around 1000 BCE, right in the middle of the Bronze Age. Over 3,000 years later, it's still intact. Why? Salt. Lots of salt. It preserved the wood like a prehistoric pickle. In short, Hallstatt didn't just give us salt mining history, it gave us a masterclass in flavor-based carpentry conservation. Some late Pleistocene mastodons, giant shaggy elephant relatives, had bones containing mercury. Not from industry, but from eating plants near natural geothermal vents. These were the earliest known megafaunal victims of environmental toxicity. So yes, millions of years before power plants or pop music, large mammals were already dealing with heavy metal exposure. In Australia's Wombayan caves, scientists found stromatolite-like structures built by cyanobacteria. But here's the twist. These bacteria didn't use sunlight. They built limestone formations in total darkness, powered by chemical reactions alone. It's photosynthesis's weird cousin, doing construction projects in the dark, with no crowd, no light, and zero appreciation. Male sand gobies don't just dig tunnels and seabeds to breed. They also meticulously clean the roof of their tunnel with their mouths. This isn't about cleanliness. It's to improve water circulation inside the tunnel, which impresses females. Because underwater, the real dating flex isn't a six-pack. It's efficient ventilation. The Dama gazelle lives in the Sahel, where water is scarce and temperatures regularly cross 40 degrees Celsius. It never drinks. Instead, it extracts moisture from plants and conserves every drop by producing ultra-dry feces and concentrated urine. It's the ultimate minimalist, surviving a desert with zero hydration and no complaints. Chondrocladia lyra, or the harp sponge, doesn't filter water like most sponges. Instead, it catches tiny animals with Velcro-like threads, digests them on the spot, and absorbs their nutrients. Essentially, it's a passive-aggressive predator, stationary, silent, and always sticky. Teotihuacan, a major city in central Mexico that once housed over 100,000 inhabitants, did not develop a full grammatical writing system like the Maya. Archaeologists have documented over 100 distinct glyphs in murals, artifacts, and urban spaces, many representing names, dates, titles, or places. These symbols formed a functional notational system, and no surviving texts on perishable materials have yet been found. The fungus Fusarium oxysporum infects plants by imitating their own hormone, auxin. This allows it to enter their vascular systems without triggering defense responses. It's biological identity theft. The fungus pretends to be the plant's own signal, then proceeds to sabotage it from the inside. During mating season, male toppy antelopes sometimes give false alarm calls to stop females from leaving. Every time a female walks away, the male yells, "Predator," just in case she reconsiders. It's less about survival and more about desperate clinginess in wildlife form. In 1904, the U.S. Army built Wham Cats, a 2,000-mile telegraph line across Alaska's ice and wilderness. It connected remote military posts long before most civilians had phones. Because if there's one thing faster than Washington, it's telegraphing through permafrost. Xenophiophores are single-celled organisms that live over 10,000 meters deep in the ocean and grow as wide as 20 centimeters. They construct protective shells from ocean sediment called tests. In essence, it's one giant cell with real estate ambitions. Pimelea simplex, or desert rice flower, is a non-thermogenic plant native to inland Australia. Unlike thermogenic species such as skunk cabbage or certain cycads, it does not generate floral heat. Instead, it relies on other strategies, such as timing its blooms, visual cues, and natural scent release under ambient conditions, to attract pollinators, making it part of the vast majority of flowering plants that succeed without temperature-based pollinator lures. In 1628, Sweden launched the warship Vasa. It sank 15 minutes later after sailing barely 1 kilometer due to top-heavy construction. When it was recovered from Stockholm's harbor in 1961, it was remarkably preserved, proving that poor engineering can, in rare cases, achieve immortality. Discovered in 2019 in the Philippines, Lithoredo abatanica is a shipworm that doesn't eat wood. Instead, it bores into limestone, digests minerals, and alters riverbeds. It's a clam that swapped wood for rock, essentially a geologist with gills. During the Ediacaran period, over 500 million years ago, Triberchidium heraldicum lived on the seafloor with a three-way symmetrical body, something not seen in modern animals. Its unique shape helped it trap food from water currents without moving. No eyes, no mouth, just smart geometry and passive dining, long before anything had bones or opinions. Polypterus senegalis, a fish from Africa, has lungs and can walk using its fins. When raised on land in labs, young ones grow stronger limbs and change how they move, showing how adaptable evolution can be. It's like a fish taking weekend lessons and being a lizard, just in case. In 1902, Mount Pelée erupted on the Caribbean island of Martinique, killing nearly 30,000 people in Saint-Pierre in just minutes. Only 2 survived, one of them a prisoner protected by thick stone walls. Ironically, being locked up saved his life. Not exactly how you'd expect to dodge a pyroclastic cloud. The Asian palm civet, Paradoxurus hermaphroditus, plays a key role in making Kopi Luwak coffee. The animal eats coffee cherries, digests the pulp, and excretes the beans. Enzymes in its gut change the bean's chemical makeup, affecting the flavor. Yes, this is a drink that depends entirely on civet digestion. Mesonyx, a meat-eating mammal from the Paleocene, had hooved toes and sharp teeth. Fossils suggest it was a top predator before modern carnivores evolved. Strangely, it's also considered an early cousin of whales, because apparently before swimming with krill, some whales' ancestors ran on hooves and chased prey. The salamander Bolidoglossa doflani hunts using a high-speed tongue that shoots out at over 20 meters per second. It doesn't use muscle force. Instead, elastic energy snaps it forward like a built-in slingshot. It's one of the most efficient feeding systems in the animal kingdom, and it fits in your hand. The giant Gippsland earthworm in southeastern Australia can grow over 3 meters long, roughly the size of a garden hose. It makes a loud gurgling sound underground and lives in deep, moist soil. Because of its slow reproduction and fragile habitat, even minor farming can wipe out local populations. Hirondellea gigas, a deep-sea amphipod living over 10,000 meters below the surface in the Mariana Trench, has an exoskeleton containing aluminum, likely sourced from a sediment in its environment. This aluminum presence may help the animal withstand conditions where calcium carbonate shells would normally dissolve, making it a notable example of how deep-sea species adapt their body chemistry to survive extreme pressures and corrosive conditions. Anomalocaris may be famous, but Egiricassus benmoli was the real giant. Over 2 meters long and living in the Ordovician seas, this arthropod filtered tiny food from water using rows of spiny limbs. It had both swimming paddles and gill branches. Evolution multitasking before vertebrates got involved. Haplophrenitus carinatus, a Cambrian sea creature, used 2 curved appendages called helens to stay upright on the ocean floor. It had a cone-shaped shell and fed using a filter organ like modern lepophorids. Not bad for something that looked like a cross between a traffic cone and a jellyfish. In 2012, archaeologists found King Richard III's grave under a parking lot in Leicester. His identity was confirmed through mitochondrial DNA from a living relative of his sister, which means the last English king to die in battle spent centuries under asphalt before forensic science gave him back his name. Ichthyophis bananicus, a legless amphibian found in southern China, breathes through its skin and lays eggs in damp soil. Its babies hatch with gills like fish, then later become underground dwellers. It's like a creature that starts life as a tadpole and retires as a worm. Roman soldiers sometimes engraved sarcastic messages on their ballista bolts, like "catch this," or the names of their commanders. These heavy iron-tipped projectiles weren't just deadly, they were psychological warfare, written in iron and launched with spring-loaded rage. Earth hosts on the order of non-Ilian bacteria, most about 1 micrometer long. If laid end to end, they'd stretch for around 10 billion light-years, a truly colossal distance. The oft-quoted figure that this string could circle the Milky Way over 20,000 times is likely a substantial exaggeration. More realistic recalculations suggest it might wrap the galaxy hundreds of times, not tens of thousands. Lingula anatina is a modern brachiopod that has maintained almost the same physical form for over 400 million years. It lives buried in marine sediment and anchors itself using a flexible stalk called a pedicle. This makes it one of the oldest known examples of a living genus that has changed very little since the early Paleozoic era. In 1854, a physician named John Snow traced a deadly cholera outbreak in London to a specific water pump on Broad Street. By mapping where cases occurred, he demonstrated that cholera spread through water rather than air. This investigation became a foundational example of modern epidemiology and public health mapping. Anhydrotherium terranovi was a species of extinct otter that once lived on land. Fossils show it migrated from North America to South America over 2 million years ago, likely crossing the Isthmus of Panama. This behavior suggests that some ancestors of modern marine otters were far more terrestrial than previously assumed. At the archaeological site of Çatalhöyük in central Turkey, researchers uncovered a woven textile made from bast fibers, stripped from tree bark, that dates back to around 7000 BCE. This is currently the oldest known example of woven fabric, appearing long before cotton or wool became common materials. The Tsingy de Bemaraha in western Madagascar is a protected area filled with narrow, jagged limestone formations. These formations were shaped by erosion over millions of years, and within their crevices, researchers have found plant and animal species found nowhere else. Human access is extremely limited due to the sharp and vertical terrain. In 1947, physicist Dennis Gabor developed the theory behind holography while studying electron microscopy. His method relied on recording light interference patterns, but it couldn't be tested until coherent laser light became available in the 1960s. His idea eventually made modern optical holography possible. The Nabateans, who lived in parts of the Arabian desert over 2,000 years ago, built systems to collect and store water without the use of metal tools. They used rock channels, cisterns, and carved basins to harvest moisture from rain and condensation. These systems allowed them to live in extremely dry regions with minimal rainfall. Syncypalum dulcificum is a West African berry that contains a compound called miraculin. When eaten, it temporarily changes how sour foods taste, making them seem sweet by altering how the tongue responds to acids. The effect can last over 30 minutes, and researchers are studying it as a potential natural aid for people with diabetes. Burial mounds from the 5th century BCE at Pazyryk in Siberia show that the Scythians may have used cannabis in rituals. Archaeologists found cannabis seeds and wooden inhalation vessels in some graves, suggesting the plant may have had ceremonial or symbolic use among these nomadic groups. In 2018, radar data from the European Space Agency's Mars Express orbiter showed a signal beneath the south polar ice cap of Mars that resembled subglacial lakes found under Earth's Antarctic ice. Scientists believe this could be a layer of liquid water, possibly kept from freezing by high salt concentrations. Selenoclamus isbrida, discovered in a garden in Wales in 2008, is a rare type of carnivorous land slug. It has no eyes or skin pigment and feeds on earthworms using a sharp, radula-like structure. Its name means ghost slug, reflecting both its appearance and how recently it was identified. Titanomyrma gigantea was a giant ant species from the Eocene period, with fossil queens measuring over 5 centimeters long. Fossils from both Europe and North America suggest that these ants may have migrated between continents during warmer climate periods, likely using temporary land bridges across the Arctic. The six-banded armadillo Euphracis succinctus is native to South America and builds complex underground burrows. These burrows often include side chambers used for food storage or resting. The armadillo sometimes seals the entrance to regulate moisture and temperature, offering a simple but effective form of environmental control. Thermus aquaticus is a bacterium discovered in the hot springs of Yellowstone National Park in the 1960s. It produces Taq polymerase, an enzyme that stays stable at high temperatures. This enzyme became essential for the development of PCR, a method used to copy DNA in research and medical diagnostics. The Mixtec codices of ancient Mesoamerica utilized a screenfold format composed of deerskin sheets coated with lime and natural pigments. Unlike the astronomical or mythological emphasis found in Aztec and Maya texts, Mixtec manuscripts primarily document genealogical records and dynastic marriages, offering critical insight into elite political networks. These codices, such as Codex Zauch-Nuttall, serve as primary sources for understanding Mixtec socio-political organization between the 11th and 16th centuries CE. Megaphragma mimerapenae, a parasitoid wasp in the family Trichogrammatidae, measures approximately 200 micrometers in length, making it one of the smallest known insects. Remarkably, several of its neurons are anucleate, lacking nuclei entirely, a rare adaptation that conserves space and metabolic resources in a severely miniaturized nervous system. This condition has been described in research by Polilov as a unique case of nuclear elimination in neural tissue. The Barbagal watermill complex, located near Arles in the Roman province of Gaul, dates to the 2nd century CE and represents the earliest known instance of industrial-scale water-powered milling. The site features a series of 16 overshot wheels arranged in parallel cascades, powered by aqueduct-fed channels. According to studies by Andrew Wilson and others, the complex likely produced flour at a rate sufficient to supply the population of a Roman city. Cymathoa exigua, a parasitic isopod in the family Cymathoidae, exhibits a rare form of parasitism in which it attaches to the tongue of its fish host, induces atrophy through blood drainage, and physically replaces the tongue by anchoring itself to the remaining musculature. This is currently the only documented example of a parasite functionally replacing a host organ. Phronima sedentaria is a small deep-sea crustacean that makes a barrel-shaped home by eating out the inside of a jelly-like creature called a salp. It then lives inside this barrel, using it as both shelter and a place to raise its young. According to some behind-the-scenes accounts, its appearance and behavior partly inspired artist H.R. Giger when designing the Alien Queen for Ridley Scott's 1979 film Alien. The Codex Calixtinus, compiled circa the mid-12th century and attributed to Emmerich Picard, served as a comprehensive guide for pilgrims traveling the Camino de Santiago to the shrine of St. James in Compostela. It includes liturgical texts, miracle narratives, and practical travel instructions. The Codex represents one of the earliest extant examples of a medieval European travel manual. The gladiator mosaic from the Roman villa at Nennig, Germany, dating to the 3rd century CE, depicts a detailed sequence of gladiatorial combat scenes. It features named combatants, referees, victory gestures, and surrender symbols. The mosaic provides one of the most comprehensive visual records of arena conventions and combat typologies in the Roman Empire. The ostracon of Scribe Hori, discovered in Deir el Medina, Upper Egypt, consists of limestone flakes featuring informal sketches, including caricatures and erotic imagery. Dated to the New Kingdom, these ostraca offer rare insight into the non-official, satirical, and subversive artistic practices of scribes and artisans associated with royal tomb construction. Capra agagrus critica, commonly known as the Cree goat, is a feral subspecies of wild goat endemic to the island of Crete. Genetic analyses confirm its divergence from modern domesticated goats, preserving traits consistent with Neolithic livestock. Isolated since Minoan times, the species is currently protected in the Lefka Ori mountain range and designated as vulnerable due to limited range and genetic bottlenecking. The Djerba synagogue, also known as El Griba, located on the island of Djerba in Tunisia, is believed to have been established by Jewish communities fleeing the destruction of Solomon's temple in the 6th century BCE. The structure's continuous use and preservation of Judeo-Berber architectural elements mark it as one of the world's oldest active synagogues, with religious activity spanning over 2 millennia. Abu Bakr ibn Muhammad ibn al-Hassan al-Kharaj, a 10th century Persian mathematician, articulated early forms of mathematical induction within his works on algebra. His use of recursive reasoning to establish the validity of binomial coefficients prefigures later European developments by several centuries. His treatises, such as Al-Fakhri, provide foundational texts in the history of Islamic mathematics. The Codex Mendoza, compiled in the mid-16th century by an Aztec tlacuilo for Spanish officials, contains detailed accounts of tributes collected from over 30 conquered provinces of the Aztec Empire. It also includes visual records of military ranks, child discipline in noble families, and educational practices. The Codex offers a unique bilingual perspective on Aztec society at the time of European contact. The shell of the chambered nautilus grows in a precise logarithmic spiral, keeping its proportions consistent as it gets larger. While often claimed to match the golden ratio of about 1.618, measurements show it actually follows a different growth ratio, averaging around 1.310. This pattern has still been studied in mathematical biology and even applied in architecture as an example of efficient natural design. In the early 20th century, physicist June Kondo explained why certain metals become less conductive at lower temperatures when they contain magnetic impurities like iron. Known as the Kondo effect, this counterintuitive behavior laid the groundwork for research in quantum many-body interactions and spintronics. The Chavin de Huantar Temple in the Peruvian Andes contains a complex network of stone ducts and underground galleries that once transmitted the sound of conch shell trumpets. Acoustic tests suggest the layout could produce disorienting, resonant effects, essentially ancient surround sound with a side of ritual intensity. The fossilized remains of the Dakika child discovered in Ethiopia in 2000 belong to the species Australopithecus afarensis. The skeleton includes a hyoid bone, crucial for studying vocal tract evolution, making this fossil a rare data point in understanding early hominin speech capacity. Bante Sre, a 10th century Cambodian temple built from pink sandstone, is noted for its unusually intricate carvings and its origin. Unlike most Angkor temples, it was not commissioned by royalty, but by a learned Brahmin, proof that in Khmer architecture occasionally the pen did rival the sword. The Cryogenian period, spanning from approximately 720 to 635 million years ago, included 2 major global glaciations. Geological evidence from low-latitude glacial deposits supports the snowball Earth hypothesis, which suggests that the planet was almost entirely frozen, effectively the worst beach day in Earth's history. The ancient Chakawan road system in the American Southwest includes linear pathways up to 9 meters wide, extending for hundreds of kilometers with built-in stairs and curbs. Their purpose remains unclear, though ceremonial use is widely proposed. Either way, these roads were over-engineered for your average foot traffic. Stone tools discovered in the Zagros Mountains of Iran display blade and point technologies comparable to contemporary European assemblages. Their presence suggests that Paleolithic innovations in lithic technology diffused eastward across forager networks long before the rise of farming communities. Acoma Pueblo in New Mexico has been continuously inhabited for over a millennium. Built atop a mesa, it features multi-storied adobe dwellings that remain in use. The elevation provided defense, and the architecture provided continuity, effectively America's oldest high-rise housing complex. The Ili Pika is a rare mountain-dwelling mammal native to China's Tian Shan Range. First spotted in 1983 and not seen again for decades, it has earned the nickname Magic Rabbit. Unfortunately, it can't pull conservation funding out of a hat. Al-Razi, a 9th century Persian physician, was among the first to distinguish smallpox from measles. His emphasis on detailed clinical observation set early foundations for differential diagnosis and remained influential in medical texts across the Islamic world and Europe for centuries. The Paleodictian nodosum trace fossil appears as a symmetrical hexagonal pattern in deep-sea sediments. Though the organism responsible has never been seen, its geometric consistency suggests either a highly disciplined invertebrate or a particularly tidy unknown life form. The classification system for Plinian eruptions is named after the Roman author Pliny the Younger, who described the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 CE in letters to the historian Tacitus. His account mentioned tall eruption columns, pyroclastic flows, and pre-eruption tremors. However, the term Plinian was not used at the time. It was introduced by volcanologists in the 18th century to classify eruptions resembling the one Pliny described. The Wubei Zhi, a 16th century Chinese military encyclopedia, includes instructions for flamethrowers powered by double-piston bellows and multiple gunpowder formulations. This documentation shows that centuries before modern weapons manuals, someone was already writing "do not aim at face" in classical Chinese. Glacial erratics, large rocks found far from their geological origin, were once a mystery to 19th century scientists. Their eventual explanation through glacial transport theory helped validate the concept of widespread ice age glaciation. For decades, these misplaced boulders were geology's version of unsolved luggage claims. The neurological condition micropsia causes objects to appear abnormally small and is frequently linked to temporal lobe epilepsy or migraine episodes. It is a hallmark feature of Alice in Wonderland syndrome, a disorder first identified in the 20th century. Clinical case studies have traced the distortion to occipital and temporal cortical disruptions, which alter visual spatial perception without affecting the physical size or actual distance of the observed object. Many Indian indigenous cattle breeds show notable natural resilience to infections like foot and mouth disease, likely due to robust innate immune responses involving genes such as interferon gamma and BOLA-DRB3. These breeds offer valuable genetic insights for enhancing disease resistance in livestock, though no singular agate breed or isolated transgenic allele has been identified. The Sican culture of northern Peru produced artifacts using arsenical bronze centuries before tin bronze was introduced in the region. Excavated grave goods from Batan Grande, dated between 800 and 1000 CE, contain copper arsenic alloys, requiring smelting at carefully controlled temperatures around 700 degrees Celsius. The metallurgical complexity indicates advanced knowledge of alloy toxicity and pre-Incan experimentation with alternative hardening agents. Cymbellaria muralis, a plant native to southern Europe, demonstrates negative phototropism in its flower stalks. Instead of growing toward light, the seed-bearing stems bend away from illumination and curl into dark crevices, particularly in rocky walls. Botanical studies confirm this trait improves seed dispersal by directing them into shaded cracks, enhancing germination success. The behavior is a documented anomaly in angiosperm phototropic response mechanisms. At the Bolivian archaeological site of Tiwanaku, megalithic stone blocks exceeding 100 tons are arranged with mortarless precision at an altitude of over 12,000 feet. Studies by Andean archaeologists confirm that many blocks were transported from quarries located more than 10 kilometers away. Despite erosion, architectural alignments and tool marks remain visible, yet no definitive method for the lifting or shaping of the stones has been documented. The city of Ugarit, located in present-day Syria and active around 1400 BCE, employed a 30-character alphabetic cuneiform system. Unlike the logographic symbols of Sumerian and Akkadian, Ugaritic script encoded individual consonants and vowels, facilitating faster writing and broader literacy. Clay tablets uncovered at the Ras Shamra excavation site show direct phonetic representations, making it one of the earliest attested alphabetic writing systems. The scalyfoot gastropod discovered near Indian Ocean hydrothermal vents in 2001 is the only known animal to incorporate iron sulfide into its exoskeleton. Its shell features a tri-layered structure with an iron outer layer, a spongy middle zone, and a calcified interior. Studies in biomineralization suggest the structure dissipates mechanical stress, offering potential models for engineered armor in robotics and materials science. The Monte Alto statues, excavated in Guatemala and dated to around 2000 BCE, contain areas of residual magnetism concentrated in the head and navel regions. Magnetometer readings confirm deliberate placement of magnetic basalt or possible exposure to high-temperature magnetic alignment. The localized polarity suggests Mesoamerican sculptors had empirical awareness of magnetism, predating known references to magnetic properties in Eurasian texts by over a millennium. Linear A, used by Minoan scribes on Crete between 1800 and 1400 BCE, remains undeciphered. Though structurally similar to Linear B, which records early Mycenaean Greek, Linear A likely encodes a non-Indo-European language. Over 1,000 inscriptions have been cataloged, primarily on clay tablets from sites such as Inassos and Phaistos. Despite extensive computational and linguistic analysis, no bilingual text or definitive translation system has emerged. The Piltdown Man hoax, exposed in 1953, combined a human cranium with an orangutan jaw to fabricate a missing link. Originally discovered in England in 1912 by Charles Dawson, the fossil misled the scientific community for over 40 years. Fluorine absorption dating conducted by Kenneth Oakley proved the skull and jaw originated from separate periods, leading to one of the most significant fraud revelations in paleoanthropology. Shen Kuo, an 11th century Chinese polymath, recorded a landslide in the Yanzhou region that exposed fossilized bamboo far from its extant habitat. In his dream pool essays, Shen hypothesized that the regional climate must have shifted dramatically over time. This statement represents one of the earliest known formulations of paleoclimatological reasoning, made almost 9 centuries before the modern development of climate science. The Indus Valley Civilization, active from approximately 2600 to 1900 BCE, used standardized fired bricks with a consistent ratio of 1 to 2 to 4. Archaeological surveys at sites like Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa have documented uniformity across urban layouts, drainage systems, and housing. The widespread application of this modular system implies a centralized standardization protocol in civil engineering long before comparable practices in Mesopotamia or Egypt. The Sundaland hypothesis proposes that a large landmass in Southeast Asia was submerged following glacial melt after the last glacial maximum, around 10,000 years ago. Geological sonar mapping reveals submerged river valleys and cave art sites in areas now underwater. Linguistic studies link Austroasiatic language dispersion patterns to this now submerged platform, suggesting a once thriving prehistoric culture lost to post-Ice Age sea level rise. Still here? Good. That means you're into this, and we're just getting to the wildest parts. Stay locked in. By the way, if this kind of content is your thing, subscribing helps us make more of it. Just saying, the Maragay Observatory, constructed in the year 1259 by Persian astronomer Nasir al-Din al-Tusi, featured advanced instruments including a massive armillary sphere. Its data were compiled into the Zge-Ilkhani astronomical tables. These methods were later translated into Latin and influenced European models, including the work of Nicholas Copernicus in the 16th century. In 2008, biologists documented the life cycle of the male Adactylidium mite. It is born inside its mother, mates with its sisters internally, and dies without ever exiting her body. The entire cycle completes within a few hours. The plant species Antinaria plantaginefolia reproduces through apomixis, producing viable seeds without fertilization. This results in all-female clonal populations, some of which are genetically identical across wide regions. The process bypasses meiosis and allows indefinite reproduction without male genetic contribution. Langya henipavirus was identified in China in 2022, following the surveillance of febrile patients in Shandong and Henan provinces. It is a zoonotic virus belonging to the Paramyxoviridae family, with genetic similarities to Nipah and Hendra viruses. Shrews were identified as the most likely animal reservoir. The city of Mohenjo-Daro, part of the Indus Valley Civilization around 2600 BCE, used standardized brick dimensions with ratios of 1 to 2 to 4. Weights used in trade were accurate to within 1.6 millimeters, suggesting a decimal-based measurement system implemented uniformly across sites. The Tarquinum Sanitatis, a Latin medical compendium from the 14th century, is based on the 10th century Arabic work Taqwim al-Sihah by Ibn Butlan. It includes early medical advice on emotional health, such as avoiding excessive sadness, managing boredom, and balancing joy. It reflects transmission of Greco-Arabic medicine into medieval Europe. In 2010, researchers at the J. Craig Venter Institute synthesized a complete bacterial genome, Mycoplasma mycoides J. CVI Syn 1.0, and inserted it into a cell. The cell replicated autonomously, marking the first creation of a self-replicating organism with a synthetic genome. The Sator square, found on ancient Roman walls in Pompeii and across Europe, contains the Latin words SATORAREPOTENETOPERAROTAS, arranged to read identically forwards, backwards, and across. Despite widespread discovery, its origin and function remain undetermined, with proposed uses ranging from cryptographic device to religious symbol. Acoustic shadow effects during the American Civil War caused battlefield sounds to travel unpredictably. At the Battle of Seven Pines in 1862, Richmond residents heard cannon fire clearly over 30 kilometers away, while Union reinforcements nearby heard nothing. The phenomenon is linked to atmospheric inversion layers and terrain distortion. In 1822, a white stork was found in northern Germany with a Central African spear piercing its neck. The specimen, called the Pfeil stork, remains preserved at the University of Rostock and provided the first confirmed evidence of long-distance avian migration between Europe and Africa. The Chernobyl disaster on April 26, 1986, led to the immediate evacuation of over 115,000 residents from the 30-kilometer exclusion zone. The explosion at Reactor 4 released radioactive material over Belarus, Ukraine, and Russia, resulting in long-term contamination and international health monitoring. The Japanese term sundoku refers to the act of acquiring reading material and allowing it to accumulate without being read. Though the term dates back to the Meiji era, it continues to describe modern consumer reading habits, particularly in academic and literary circles. During the Apollo 17 mission in December 1972, astronauts discovered orange-colored soil near Shorty Crater. Analysis later revealed it to be volcanic glass beads formed from pyroclastic eruptions, indicating explosive lunar volcanism over 3 billion years ago. In 2022, researchers retrieved DNA from ancient plants preserved in Greenland's Cap Copenhagen Formation. The genetic material, dated to approximately 2 million years ago, represents the oldest known preserved DNA, predating previously discovered sequences by nearly 1 million years. While excavating the Paris metro in the late 19th century, workers uncovered remnants of a Roman-era road. The find included preserved cobblestones, ceramic fragments, and wheel ruts indicating consistent vehicular traffic, confirming Paris's occupation during the Gallo-Roman period. A 16th-century Spanish automaton known as the mechanical monk was built by clockmaker Juanelo Turiano. The device uses a spring-driven mechanism to walk, move its arms, and strike its chest in rhythmic motion. It is housed in the Smithsonian Institution and represents one of the earliest humanoid machines. In Tunisia's Matmata region, Berber communities constructed underground homes carved directly into sandstone formations. These structures maintain stable temperatures year-round and date back several centuries. The location was later used as a filming site for Luke Skywalker's home in the 1977 film Star Wars: A New Hope. In 2023, archaeologists in Zambia discovered 2 interlocked wooden logs shaped by early humans using stone tools. The structure is dated to at least 476,000 years ago, making it the oldest known example of wooden architecture. The discovery challenges previous timelines for early human engineering capabilities. In 2020, researchers at the University of Adelaide and Flinders University identified a hormone in Australian platypus venom that mimics glucagon-like peptide 1, a human hormone involved in insulin regulation. Unlike human GLP-1, the platypus version resists rapid degradation, offering potential for longer-acting treatments in type 2 diabetes therapies. The discovery provides a novel biological pathway for endocrinological drug development. The Hadza people of northern Tanzania speak a language that includes click consonants, a feature associated with some of the earliest human phonetic systems. Linguists consider these phonemes among the oldest spoken sounds, unrelated to most modern language families. The Hadza are one of the last remaining hunter-gatherer societies in East Africa, preserving an oral language structure that may date back tens of thousands of years. In 2018, osteological and grave artifact analysis at the Birka site in Sweden confirmed that a Viking warrior buried with full military equipment, including weapons and gaming pieces, was biologically female. The findings published in the American Journal of Physical Anthropology challenge historical assumptions about gender roles in Norse military culture and demonstrate female participation in elite martial positions during the Viking Age. The Buta's Void is a large, roughly spherical region of intergalactic space measuring nearly 330 million light-years in diameter. It contains very few galaxies relative to its volume, making it one of the most extensive known cosmic voids. Its existence was first reported in 1981 by astronomer Robert Kirshner and colleagues during redshift surveys of galactic distributions. The Herculaneum scrolls were carbonized during the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 CE and remain unrolled due to their fragility. Researchers are using X-ray phase contrast tomography to reconstruct the internal ink patterns digitally. This technique enables the non-destructive reading of ancient Greek philosophical texts, primarily associated with the Epicurean school, found in the Villa of the Papyri. On the island of Yap in Micronesia, large limestone discs called rye stones functioned as currency. The stones, some over 4 meters in diameter and weighing several tons, were quarried in Palau and transported by canoe. Their value was not dependent on physical possession. Social acknowledgement of ownership was sufficient, making the stones among the earliest forms of abstract monetary systems. The maned wolf is a canid native to South American grasslands. It features disproportionately long legs adapted for visibility in tall vegetation. Despite its name, genetic analysis confirms it is not closely related to true wolves or foxes, but represents the only extant species in the genus Chrysocheon, diverging from other canids approximately 7 million years ago. During construction of the Panama Canal between 1904 and 1914, over 25,000 laborers died, primarily from yellow fever, malaria, and industrial accidents. The highest mortality occurred during the French-led phase under Ferdinand de Lesseps. American control from 1904 implemented sanitation reforms under William Gorgas, reducing disease but not eliminating fatalities in one of history's deadliest engineering projects. The Dogon people of Mali possess traditional astronomical knowledge that includes awareness of Sirius B, a white dwarf star invisible to the naked eye. Anthropological studies in the 20th century, notably by Marcel Griol and Germaine Dieterlen, reported Dogon oral traditions describing Sirius B's orbit and density, despite the star's discovery by Western astronomers using telescopes only in the 19th century. In 2023, paleontologists reported fossilized skin impressions of Psittacosaurus from the Jehol biota of China, revealing detailed pigmentation patterns. Using laser-stimulated fluorescence and microscopy, researchers observed countershading camouflage, dark on the back and light on the belly, indicating visual concealment adaptations against Cretaceous predators. The fossil dates to approximately 120 million years ago. Marcania polymorpha, a liverwort species, is part of one of the oldest lineages of land plants, with liverwort fossils dating back over 400 million years. While this particular species is not directly known from such ancient fossils, it shares many traits with early non-vascular plants. It reproduces asexually through gemmae and is widely used as a model organism for studying the evolutionary transition of plants to terrestrial environments during the Paleozoic era. The Saqqara bird is a carved wooden artifact dated to approximately 200 BCE, discovered in an Egyptian tomb near Saqqara. Shaped with avian features and horizontal tailplane-like wings, its aerodynamic form has prompted speculation regarding ancient understanding of flight principles. No evidence exists of functional aircraft, but the artifact continues to be studied for its symbolic or experimental significance. On August 21, 1945, Physicist Harry Daghlian died following a criticality accident at Los Alamos Laboratory. He accidentally dropped a tungsten carbide brick onto a plutonium core, triggering a neutron radiation spike. The event, later dubbed part of the Demon Core incidents, exposed Daghlian to a fatal dose of ionizing radiation, making him the first nuclear-related casualty in history. The Ramanujan prime, defined by Srinivasa Ramanujan in 1913, specifies the smallest number r sub n, such that for all x greater than or equal to Rn, the number of primes between x divided by 2 and x is at least n. These primes contribute to analytic number theory by providing lower bounds on prime densities in given intervals and are used in prime counting function approximations. The Banaway rice terraces in the Ifugao region of Luzon, Philippines, were constructed more than 2,000 years ago using stone tools and gravity-based irrigation. Carved into mountainsides up to 1,500 meters high, the terraces represent advanced indigenous agricultural engineering. They remain functional and are recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site due to their historical and ecological significance. The Codex Sinaiticus is a 4th century CE manuscript of the Christian Bible written in Greek on vellum. It includes parts of the Old and New Testaments and was discovered in the mid-19th century at St. Catherine's Monastery on the Sinai Peninsula by Constantin von Tischendorf. Currently housed in the British Library, it is one of the oldest surviving complete biblical codices. NASA's Ingenuity helicopter, delivered to Mars aboard the Perseverance rover in 2021, became the first powered, controlled aircraft to operate on another planet. Weighing 1.8 kilograms, it uses counter-rotating carbon fiber blades spanning 1.2 meters. Its successful flights demonstrated feasibility for aerial exploration in Mars' thin atmosphere, which has only 1% the density of Earth's. The genome of the Shetland pony includes variants associated with compact bone structure, efficient fat storage, and thermoregulation. These adaptations support survival in the Shetland Islands' cold, wind-exposed terrain with limited forage. Genetic studies confirm selection for small stature and metabolic efficiency, traits that distinguish the breed among domesticated equines. Average adult height is under 1 meter at the withers. The enzyme rubisco plays a central role in photosynthesis by catalyzing the first major step of carbon fixation. It is found in the chloroplasts of plants, algae, and cyanobacteria. Because of its essential function and widespread presence, rubisco is considered the most abundant protein on Earth, accounting for a significant portion of leaf nitrogen in terrestrial ecosystems. In 2005, a geological event in the Afar region of Ethiopia created the Dabahu fissure, an 8-meter-wide crack that opened over just 10 days. This event marked a rare observation of continental rifting in progress, where the African and Arabian tectonic plates are slowly pulling apart, offering researchers direct evidence of how new ocean basins can eventually form. Before the widespread use of the abacus, Chinese scholars used counting rods arranged on a counting board to perform calculations. This positional system supported addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and even solving linear equations. Evidence of its use appears as early as the Warring States period, around the 4th century BCE, predating comparable arithmetic systems in Europe by centuries. Linus Pauling initially proposed a triple helix structure for DNA, but in 1953, James Watson and Francis Crick introduced the double helix model that became widely accepted. Their model relied heavily on X-ray diffraction images produced by Rosalind Franklin and Raymond Gosling. The double helix arrangement explained DNA replication and base pairing, forming the foundation for molecular genetics. Spoken by indigenous communities across northern Siberia, the Samoyedic languages are part of the Uralic family and include Nenets, Enets, and Nganasan. These languages preserve linguistic features such as agglutinative grammar, noun case systems, and evidential markers. Their grammatical structure differs significantly from Indo-European languages and provides valuable information on ancient human migration and communication patterns. The tomb of China's first emperor, Qin Shi Huang, constructed in the 3rd century BCE near Xi'an, remains largely unexcavated. Historical records suggest it contains rivers of mercury to simulate landscapes. Modern soil analyses have detected elevated mercury concentrations around the mound, lending scientific support to these ancient descriptions. The nearby Terracotta Army was discovered in the 1970s. The Tlingit people of the Pacific Northwest crafted ceremonial objects known as coppers, which were shaped like shields and made of hammered copper sheets. These items held symbolic and economic value, often exchanged or publicly broken during potlatch feasts to display social status or settle disputes. Each copper had a known history of ownership, making it both a ritual item and record. The Dighton Rock is a roughly 40-ton boulder located in the Taunton River in Massachusetts. It contains carvings whose origins are still debated. First recorded in the 17th century, the markings have been attributed to Native American petroglyphs, Norse explorers, Portuguese mariners, and even Phoenicians. Despite extensive study, there is no consensus on who carved them or when. In 2021, researchers working in northern Guatemala used airborne LiDAR, light detection, and ranging to scan dense jungle terrain. They identified more than 60,000 previously unknown Maya structures, including roads, fortifications, and ceremonial platforms. The discovery provided evidence of extensive urban planning and connectivity in pre-Columbian Maya civilization, particularly around the ancient city of Tikal. Cicadas produce sound using a pair of structures called tymbals, located on the sides of their abdomen. These tymbals rapidly buckle inward and release, generating a loud, resonating call. Some species can exceed 100 decibels in volume. The sound is mainly used by males to attract mates, and is among the loudest biological sounds produced by any insect. The basilica cistern, constructed during the reign of Emperor Justinian I in the 6th century CE, lies beneath present-day Istanbul. It was capable of storing over 80,000 cubic meters of water and supplied the Great Palace complex. The structure contains more than 300 marble columns, many repurposed from older Roman buildings, including 2 bases carved with the face of Medusa. The Alma-Ata Sitta meteorite was the first extraterrestrial object observed in space and subsequently recovered on Earth. Associated with asteroid 2008 TC3, it entered Earth's atmosphere on October 6, 2008, and disintegrated over northern Sudan. Over 600 fragments were later recovered from the Nubian desert. The meteorite belongs to the rare Urilite class, providing valuable insight into early planetary differentiation. Inuit communities traditionally utilized Inuksut, man-made stone landmarks, across Arctic landscapes. These structures served various functions, including navigational aids, directional markers for caribou drives, and indicators of spiritual or culturally significant sites. Their design varies by region and purpose, and their continued use reflects the complex spatial knowledge systems of indigenous Arctic populations. The Gelada, endemic to the Ethiopian highlands, is a graminivorous primate, notable for its vocal complexity. Studies have shown that geladas use vocal sequences with rhythmic properties resembling those of human speech. Research by Bergman et al. In 2012 highlighted that their vocal exchanges followed temporal structures potentially relevant to the evolution of proto-language. Fluted projectile points attributed to the Clovis culture, dated to approximately 13,000 years before present, exhibit advanced lithic flaking techniques. These spear points, characterized by longitudinal flutes removed from the base, facilitated hafting to wooden shafts. The abrupt archaeological disappearance of Clovis artifacts remains unresolved and continues to prompt debate regarding early human dispersal and extinction events in North America. The Indri, a large lemur species native to Madagascar, is among the few non-human mammals known to engage in structured vocal duetting. Research published in Current Biology in 2021 by Gamba et al. Documented that these vocalizations contain measurable tempo, rhythm, and pitch organization, offering a potential comparative model for investigating the origins of musicality and temporal coordination in primates. The tomb of the diver, discovered in Paestum, Italy, and dated to circa 470 BCE, contains unique painted frescoes interpreted as non-funerary in content. This tomb is singular within the Greek world for its depiction of a symposium scene and a solitary figure diving into water. The iconography, executed in buon fresco technique, provides rare visual evidence of Greek painting outside domestic or temple contexts. A single gram of soil may contain up to 10 billion microorganisms, encompassing thousands of taxonomic units, including bacteria, archaea, fungi, and protists. The vast majority of these microbial species remain uncultured and undescribed, making soil one of the most biologically diverse environments on Earth. Advancements in metagenomics and high-throughput sequencing have facilitated partial characterization of this microbiota. Aerogel, particularly silica-based variants developed by NASA and other institutions, holds the record for the lowest known density of any solid material, with a typical density ranging from 0.03 to zero point 0.3 grams per cubic centimeter. It consists of over 99% air by volume. Its low thermal conductivity, below 0.01 watts per meter Kelvin, makes it an effective insulator in both terrestrial and aerospace applications. Actually, let me know in the comments. Have you heard any of these before? I'll be checking responses. Lichtenberg figures are fractal-like electrical discharge patterns formed when high-voltage electricity passes through insulating materials. These patterns can be created experimentally in dielectric solids or observed in rare cases of human lightning strike survivorship. They represent a visualization of electrical branching behavior governed by dielectric breakdown pathways. The Marangoni effect describes mass transfer along an interface due to surface tension gradients caused by temperature or concentration differences. This phenomenon is visible in everyday contexts, such as the formation of wine tears on a glass. It is quantitatively described by the Marangoni number, which models the relative importance of surface tension-driven convection versus diffusion. A pangram is defined as a sentence that includes every letter of a given alphabet at least once. In English, the most commonly cited example is, "The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog." Pangrams are utilized in typography testing, keyboard layout evaluation, and cryptographic systems due to their letter coverage efficiency. In the 19th century, British firms imported large quantities of mummified cats from Egyptian archaeological sites. These remains, excavated primarily for commercial gain, were ground into powder and used as agricultural fertilizer. Historical records from the Liverpool docks document shipments exceeding 180,000 cats, a practice curtailed only after the implementation of stricter heritage preservation laws. The island of Sark, part of the bailiwick of Guernsey and the Channel Islands, maintains strict regulations prohibiting motor vehicles. Local transportation is limited to walking, bicycles, and horse-drawn carts. This regulatory framework supports the island's designation as one of the last road vehicle-free jurisdictions in Europe, contributing to its conservation of traditional rural infrastructure. During the early 19th century, the British East India Company maintained a private military force exceeding 260,000 soldiers. This contingent surpassed the size of the contemporary British Army and was instrumental in maintaining colonial control across the Indian subcontinent. The force was formally disbanded following the Indian Rebellion of 1857 and the subsequent Government of India Act in 1858. In 2015, researchers led by Jonathan Russell at Yale University identified a fungal species, Pestalozziopsis microspora, in the Amazon rainforest capable of degrading polyurethane plastic under both aerobic and anaerobic conditions. This metabolic capacity has positioned the fungus as a potential candidate for biotechnological applications in waste management and synthetic polymer decomposition. In 2011, scientists discovered the nematode Halocephalobus mephisto in groundwater located over 3 kilometers beneath the Earth's surface in South African gold mines. This organism, capable of surviving temperatures above 37 degrees Celsius, low oxygen, and high lithostatic pressure, represents one of the deepest multicellular life forms known. Its discovery has implications for extremophile biology and subsurface biosphere studies. The Apollo 11 mission left a retroreflector array on the lunar surface in 1969. This device still returns laser pulses from Earth, allowing researchers to measure the Earth-Moon distance with an accuracy of a few millimeters. It remains one of the few scientific instruments on the Moon still in active use. The London Underground includes a number of disused or ghost stations that were abandoned due to changes in passenger traffic or network routes. Some of these subterranean spaces were repurposed during the World War II as secure government bunkers or air raid shelters, which may be the only time the tube ran ahead of schedule. In 2008, the European Space Agency launched its first automated transfer vehicle, named Jules Verne, to deliver cargo to the International Space Station. The mission successfully transported supplies, fuel, scientific equipment, and personal items for the crew. After completing its delivery, the ATV was repurposed to safely dispose of waste from the station, re-entering Earth's atmosphere in a controlled burn, demonstrating its dual role in both resupply and orbital waste management. Gallium is a soft metal that melts at about 29.8 degrees Celsius, allowing it to liquefy in a human hand. In metallurgy, its interaction with certain metals, particularly aluminum, can cause a process called liquid metal embrittlement. In LME, liquid gallium infiltrates the grain boundaries of aluminum, making the metal brittle and more likely to crack under stress. The Statue of Unity in Gujarat, India, completed in 2018, is currently the tallest statue in the world. Standing at 182 meters, it honors Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, a key figure in Indian unification. It is nearly twice the height of the Statue of Liberty, which now looks distinctly travel-sized by comparison. South Korea operates an emergency number 1330 specifically for tourists. The service offers real-time assistance in multiple languages, including translation and travel guidance, making it one of the few helplines where getting lost might be the best way to explore. Susami Bay in Japan is home to the world's deepest functioning postbox, located 10 meters underwater. Installed in 1999 to promote tourism, it receives thousands of waterproof letters each year. Mail delivery is slightly delayed, but the view is unmatched. In scuba diving, the OK gesture, forming a circle with your thumb and forefinger, means I'm fine. A thumbs up, however, means ascend. Confusing the two might result in an unexpected trip to the surface and possibly some annoyed dive buddies. Bats are the only mammals capable of true sustained flight. Their wings are composed of thin membranes stretched across elongated finger bones, unlike gliding mammals such as flying squirrels, which rely on passive descent and stylish capes. The Milky Seas effect is a bioluminescent phenomenon in which vast areas of ocean emit a continuous blue-white glow. Caused by luminous bacteria, the effect can span over 15,000 square kilometers and has been confirmed via satellite imaging. Nature, it seems, occasionally enjoys atmospheric lighting. Canada possesses the longest national coastline on Earth, measuring over 202,000 kilometers. This accounts for nearly one-fifth of the global total, a figure that explains both the maple syrup exports and the number of winter coats in circulation. The earliest known vending machine dates back to the 1st century CE and was invented by Hero of Alexandria. It dispensed a measured amount of holy water upon insertion of a coin, possibly the only time divine blessings came with exact change. The China Jinping Underground Laboratory, located more than 2,400 meters beneath a mountain in Sichuan province, is the deepest operating underground lab on Earth. It is primarily used for particle physics and dark matter experiments, with minimal signal interference and minimal sunlight. Charles Darwin is credited with inventing a wheeled office chair. By adding casters to his seat, he could move efficiently between specimen tables in his study. A 19th century innovation that quietly launched the era of the rolling swivel chair and the modern procrastinator's dance. The number 172 is embedded in the engraving on the reverse side of the United States $5 bill. It appears within the Bush design at the base of the Lincoln Memorial, positioned as a subtle engraving detail in the currency's artwork. This number does not have a known functional purpose and is often considered a feature added by the designers during the note's production. John F. Kennedy, the 35th President of the United States, was recorded speaking at over 350 words per minute in several public addresses. This speech rate, notably faster than the average conversational pace of 150 to 160 words per minute, was considered one of the fastest reliably documented among political leaders during the mid-20th century. Over the course of an average human lifetime, estimated at approximately 79 years, a person is likely to walk over 192,000 kilometers. This is roughly equivalent to 5 complete circumnavigations of Earth along the equator, which measures approximately 40,075 kilometers in circumference. Odontophobia is classified as a specific phobia involving an extreme or irrational fear of teeth or dental procedures. It falls under the broader category of anxiety disorders and can lead to avoidance of dental visits, increasing the risk of oral health complications. The condition may stem from previous trauma, sensory sensitivities, or fear of pain associated with dental treatment. The 2 marble lions in front of the New York Public Library's main branch in Manhattan are named Patience and Fortitude. They were officially given these names during the 1930s by Mayor Fiorello LaGuardia. Carved from Tennessee marble, the lions have become cultural symbols of the library and remain among the most recognized public sculptures in the United States. As of recent government wildlife estimates, the kangaroo population in Australia exceeds 40 million, while the human population stands at approximately 26 million. This ratio means kangaroos outnumber humans by more than 1.5 to 1. Most kangaroos are concentrated in grassland and shrubland ecosystems, and their population is regulated through seasonal culling and land management strategies. A volume of 1 million standard goldfish bowls, each holding approximately 1 gallon, would equal roughly 3.78 million liters of water. This volume is sufficient to fill a small sports stadium or an Olympic-sized swimming pool approximately 1.5 times, illustrating the cumulative scale of small containers at large quantities. The soft drink 7-Up was introduced in 1929 by Charles Leiper Grigg. The 7 in the name referred to its original 7-ounce glass bottles, while Up symbolized the carbonation that caused the beverage to fizz upward. The formula originally contained lithium citrate, a mood-stabilizing compound, which was later removed from the recipe in 1948 due to regulatory changes. Traditional bagpipes were historically constructed using the entire skin of a sheep, including the legs, neck, and torso. The hide would be treated, sealed, and repurposed into an airtight reservoir or bag, which provided continuous airflow through attached pipes. Modern bagpipes often use synthetic materials, but historically accurate reproductions may still employ animal hides for cultural or ceremonial purposes. Mount Davis, the highest point in Pennsylvania, reaches 1,321 meters above sea level. In contrast, the lowest point in Colorado, located where the Arickaree River crosses into Kansas, sits at 1,010 meters. Despite being Colorado's lowest elevation, this point is higher than the highest geographic elevation in Pennsylvania. The United States has historically deployed mules in numerous military campaigns, particularly in mountainous or undeveloped regions, due to their ability to carry heavy loads over rugged terrain. Notably, in conflicts such as the Second World War and earlier frontier battles, mules supported supply transport. There is no recorded major defeat where U.S. forces relied significantly on mule transport. Pediatric growth studies indicate that human children experience the most rapid linear growth during the spring months. This seasonal growth pattern has been observed in various countries and is attributed to factors such as increased sunlight exposure, dietary shifts, and hormonal changes. Height velocity typically peaks between March and May in temperate climates, especially among school-age children. A standard cord of wood defined as a stack measuring 4 feet high, 4 feet wide, and 8 feet long can yield approximately 7.5 million wooden toothpicks. The exact number depends on wood type and density, but this quantity illustrates the scale of industrial production from a single unit of hardwood, typically maple or birch. The small plastic tips found at the ends of shoelaces are called aglets. Their primary function is to prevent fraying of the lace and to make threading through eyelets easier. Aglets are typically made from plastic, metal, or resin, and the concept dates back to ancient Rome, where similar fasteners were sometimes crafted from bone or bronze. A 41-gun salute is the customary artillery honor given to mark the birth of a royal family member in the United Kingdom. This consists of a basic 21-gun royal salute, augmented by 20 additional rounds when fired from a royal park, or location such as the Tower of London. The tradition is governed by ceremonial military protocol. All humans begin development as a single-celled zygote, formed immediately after the fertilization of an ovum by a sperm. The zygote undergoes rapid mitotic divisions over the next 30 to 36 hours before forming a multicellular blastocyst. This early unicellular stage represents the only time in human life when the entire organism consists of a single cell. Dentists commonly recommend storing your toothbrush at least 6 feet, or approximately 2 meters, away from a toilet. This precaution reduces the chance of contamination from microscopic particles dispersed into the air during flushing. It's one reason some toothbrushes live lonelier lives on the far side of the bathroom sink. Sleeping burns more calories than watching television. The difference isn't enormous, but your metabolism does a bit more work during sleep cycles than during passive screen time. This also makes napping arguably more productive than binge watching. The Concorde supersonic jet could fly from London to New York fast enough to land 2 hours before it took off, due to time zone differences. While this felt like time travel, passengers still aged at the normal rate, and their jet lag remained frustratingly real. Thanks for watching. If you found any of those 184 facts even remotely fascinating, consider subscribing, because this is just the surface. Drop a comment below with your favorite fact, and I'll see you in the next one.